Hello, and before you get started on this episode of Zapped to the Past, we would just like to give a massive shout out to the following people: Andy Marsh, Cole Hutchinson, David Hearn, Sven Osa, 2000 DC, Gary Heather, Roger McNally, Lee Dove, Ben Granville, Mark Fletcher, Etienne Vettingfeld, Niall Bullitt, Alexander Gosling, Tim TJ Walker, Phil Sowerby, Joshua K, Dominic Kendrick, Rune P, Nick James, Daniel Spreadbury, Peter Price, Richard Davey, Dennis B, AL82 Retro, Liam Carew, Dylan Darch, Alistair McMillan, Mark Schutz, Lee Sparkles, Dan Wales, Gary Wilson, Oscar Jacobson, Brian Howarth, Rob Clayton, Clyde Radcliffe, Juan Luis Sanchez, Adam Askew, Leo Staples, Jason Hutchins, Jan Halholm, David Stringer, Chris Snowden, David Winter, and Mike's Retro Tech. These amazing people have backed our Patreon at the C64 tier, and the support they offer, well, is just awesome. If you want to join them, get a mention in next month's shout out, access to our Discord server, early access to our ad-free episodes, along with any special releases we put out, along with anything else we can think of, and sign up by the 18th of the month at patreon.com/Zapped to the Past for probably less than the price of a pint of beer. So now, on with the show. And welcome to episode 147 of Zapped to the Past. I'm Adrian Mills. I'm joined as always by Mr. Graham Raddings. If you haven't listened before, this is a podcast where we discuss games that were released for the Commodore 64. Last week, we looked at our first batch of games from issue 59 of Zap 64, which we are in no way affiliated with, and wandered lonely as a panther in the woeful wild streets, neutralised the electro scans in Neutralizer, and walked like a pro in Pro Mountain Bike Simulator. This week, we conclude our look at the games in March 1990, along with what was lighting up our TV and cinema screens that month. Graham, it is your sole responsibility to make us hope for the best, but prepare for the worst.
As quickly as we ran into March, we found ourselves running out. And in the final episode of the month that saw the SR-71 Blackbird set a transcontinental record flying 2,404 miles in 1 hour, 8 minutes and 17 seconds, we once again head into that C64-filled fourth dimension, this time to have a good old run and gun, while avoiding stuff all over the place in the interesting Cyberdyne Warrior. We climb into the cockpit of an F-18 Hornet as we set our sights on an air show. Yes, we're formation flying, or something like it, in Blue Angels. And we head off on a dreary adventure in the first walk and beak game. Yes, indeed. In the under-flappy Dynamite Dux. It's a funny month, March. The Official Secrets Act came into force this month in the UK too. Wonder what they did before that. Still, the first rule of the Official Secrets Act, as we all know, is that you do not talk about the Official Secrets Act. Anyway, while we try and figure all that out, we head to the moon. Well, we never actually get there. In the adventureless meanderings of Tintin on the moon. We put up our dukes and go all Queensberry-like in the decidedly stiff boxing game, The Champ. We climb into the turret of a battle tank and practice our best modelling expressions in the trundly Steel Thunder, before finally heading on one last trip to the fourth dimension, this time to scoot around the isometric mazes and mysteries of another puzzler in the worthwhile Mission Impossibubble. There is a lot packed in there, and the fourth dimension is doing a lot of the heavy lifting, but amongst those are some decent titles, I suppose, and long may it last.
Yes, that is a duty I take very seriously.
It is. With games we're going to play, generally in real life, he's always going up to people, just, it could get better, but make sure you've got some savings and you've got some stock in your, your basement in case.
I generally hope for a vest. Anyway, a good vest. It's nice in the winter.
Make us hope
there is
for a
unpredictable
vest.
At the minute. Yeah. Hope for a vest, prepare for a burst.
Brat burst.
Move on. That's the Chicago way.
You brought a bratwurst to a sausage fight.
Okay. Not sure what version of The Untouchables you've been watching, but
Oh, it was The Untouchables. It was the Touchables.
The Touchables, yeah, the Pet House Video one, I think that one.
Oh dear.
My
That
God.
went
Okay.
odd very quickly.
That took a turn. Yeah, it did.
It did. Oh, by the way, Graham, stop the press it. Did you looked at that book? The book that I brought around the other day? Awesome book
the
that one of
8-Bit
our
Stories book. Well,
Yeah,
yes, I
that
have.
one. Yeah.
Yes.
It's good, isn't
Of
it?
course I did. Yes.
So one of our patrons, Michael
Amazing
John Nurney.
patrons.
Yeah,
Amazing
patrons. I'm always downbeat. Graham, you're the upbeat one. We know this. I'm the more,
Yes.
patrons. But yeah, Michael John Nurney, he's written a book, 8-Bit Stories, Home
He really
Computing in 1980s Britain,
has.
which is cool. And, well, not only that, but you know what he's done? But at the back of this book, he's put us in.
I know. It actually wasn't the first page I turned to. In an ironic twist, I just only grab a book and you just think, oh, you just open it. It fell open immediately, the game Elite. I was like, oh. It's like a slap across the face. But no, there we are, festooned at the back, live, and a massive image of the new logo. Thank you for that. Fantastic. It looks really cool as well. So pleased with that. Magic. Absolute magic. What an entry. Yeah. Thank you so much. That's incredible, isn't it? And I definitely recommend, this is a properly good deep dive into all the different computers in the 80s. There's so many in there I've never even heard of.
Yeah, true, exactly, yeah.
I thought I knew about a few, but the Jupiter Ace, never heard of that. Have you heard of that?
No one's heard of that. I think he's making
No
them
one's
up.
heard of that. Yeah, he's just invented a load of pictures of all these different ones. You mean you didn't hear of that one? Oh, well, you've heard of the Sinclair ZX80, of course, but have you heard of the Carrot 52? No? Well, you should have.
Absolutely. Have you heard of the Aragon 37? No, it wasn't a thing.
Do you know, there's a company called Sword, spelled S-O-R-D, Sword of Japan. They released a computer called the Sword M5.
Sounds like a car.
Get your game now on Jupiter, Sword. Available on all the 8-bit formats. Any Sword coders out there? Anyone?
And Orange 2. You mean the Apple 2? No. This is the Orange 2.
We're not infringing anyone's. There's plenty of fruit. Apples are not the only fruit. I've said this many times.
Yeah. So there you go. Thank you very much, Mike.
Yeah, amazing.
Amazing stuff. And it's available on Amazon. Go get it. 8-bit Stories. Home Computing
Absolutely.
in 1980s Britain.
He's also got a YouTube channel, so it's definitely worth go checking that out, hasn't he?
Oh, yeah.
What is it? It's the vintage style computer thing. I think it's MVT, Pet Vintage or Vintage, something like that. But we'll put the link to the YouTube channel in the old show notes anyway. And then a link to the Amazon page so you can go and buy yourself a copy, which we strongly recommend you do because there's a picture of us in it and that is always worth, even if you didn't buy it for anything else, buy it for that.
Yeah, absolutely. There you go.
But obviously there's stuff.
Yeah. Thank you, Mike.
Yes. Woo.
Anyway, how many games we got this week? It's 7. Another 7 games this
whole
week.
games. 7 glorious games.
There are 7 games. Should we just get into them? Should we just get going?
Now is the time, and the time is now.
Now is time. All right, let's get into these games. And first up this week, it's another one from the Fourth Dimension.
Excellent.
That compilation, we saw 2 last week. Here's the third of those 4 games, and this is Cyberdyne Warrior. This got 90%. Again, $12.99, but on average £3.24, and whatever that works out at. I don't know. It works out something. This is the third in the series of games, as I said. This is Cyberdyne Warrior. This was developed by Apex Computer Productions. And we last saw them with the excellent Retrograde. But this was actually made first. This was made before Retrograde. This went into kind of a sort of release hell. And it didn't sort of, nobody wanted to release it, strangely enough, until it sort of popped up on here in this sort of strange compilation that came out. So yeah, this was the first in the series. Retrograde was actually, I've sort of read somewhere online, I don't know what the difference is. I mean, maybe it is a little bit, but it's kind of some kind of sequel to this Retrograde. It kind of followed on from this a little bit. You can kind of see it a little bit, but it's a different kind of game, this. Whatever. It was coded by John and Steve Rowlands. The music is by Steve Rowlands. It's a Rowlands joint. Roland.
He did it.
Roland.
He did it.
Yeah, Roland. Before we get to the game, there's an interesting piece about this on the games that weren't. This originally had a full sort of movie-style sort of big intro sequence, and that wasn't actually released. It wasn't seen or released in the final game. In this intro, we saw you fly across space, a kind of really nice spaceship before landing, departing your ship in a docking bay while sort of small like AT-STs or Ed 209s wander about before we jumped off the screen into the game. It's kind of cool. You can watch it on YouTube. We'll link to it in the show notes. So if you're interested, or you can go read about it on the games that weren't, which is, always a good read. I like reading games that weren't. Lots of interesting things on there. Anyway, in this version, when the game loads, we get a thumpy title screen tune by Mr. Rowland. That's Steve of the pair. It's pretty good. Pretty good. The music in this is pretty good all round. We liked it in Retrograde. Steve Rowlands does some decent tunes. I liked it. Good pace, nice upbeat, sets the tone for the game. All right, yeah, I like this. This is good. Title screen itself, also very good. Cool logo at the top. Animated credits at the bottom, and these flick to the items in the game that you need to find, such as the shop, money, droids, and the dreaded blind. You can also press space here, and the bottom layer where it says press fire to start will be highlighted. And this means that in-game, when you shoot, the screen will flash like a sort of burst, to simulate sort of muzzle flare. It's a nice touch, but you shoot a lot. Can be a bit hard on the eyes in-game. So you're probably not suited for those who are sensitive to such things, is what I will say. But if you're not sensitive, you might want to give it a go, but it does get flashy. It's flashy. The screen's flash. There's a lot of flashing. Anyway, there's a story. What's the story? Let me tell you. It is this. To be fair, there's not much of a story. The game's based around 3 planets, each with an orbiting prison satellite. For each satellite, captive droids escape and, using onboard transporters, beam down to the planets below. As the transporters were built for humans only, the droids' self-destruct mechanisms are accidentally activated. Always a pain. Unless the droids are recovered within the time limit, the planet will be destroyed, and you with it. You are the last Cyberdyne Warrior, and it's up to you to locate the droids and return them to the satellite. There are numerous inhabitants who may have to be who may have to be destroyed. May. You have to kill everything in order to reach the droids. You have at your disposal a machine gun, which can have its speed and caliber modified, with extra ammunition also available. It's possible to delay the time before the droids self-destruct. You may also purchase energy, which may have been lost by coming into contact with planet inhabitants. In order to purchase items, you must collect money from the planet and transport to the satellite with at least one droid. From there, you're presented with a menu of items which you may buy. You then return to the planet to continue your mission until all the droids are recovered. So, this is a simple search and rescue kind of thing. We have to find the droid on the levels and just make it back. And that's kind of it. Sounds easy. Well, it's not.
No,
it's not. Pressing fire on the title screen takes us to a very nice interstitial intro where we are told to get ready whilst in a window. Our hero lowers the visor on his helmet, cocks his gun, and then starts shooting into the air. It's quite nice. It's even got a really nice touch where the muzzle flash is reflected in the visor, sort of highlights the visor. It's really nice graphics here. The graphics in this are all good for all the way through, but again, it's that retrograde level of presentation. We see it again here, and we'll see it in all the rest of the Roland's games. But they're just very good at putting this presentation, this sort of extra polish on top of everything else. And that's very nice. Once done, we're into the game. So this is a flick screen platform adventure. I think, guess what you call it, a shoot 'em up platform, shoot 'em up type thing. With the game window taking up about 4/5 of the screen. The UI is there at the bottom. The UI is packed with information. It is rammed to the bursting almost. It's got your score and the stage you're on at the top. Then there's a bar that quickly dwindles, which is your energy. Underneath this is the caliber of your weapon, the time remaining before the planet goes boom, and the speed of your auto fire. Under this is the remaining ammo you have, with the number of magazines left and the number of bullets in your current magazine. There are some empty squares which fill in as you find the droids. And finally, how much money you have.
Yep.
You control a little space-suited Cyberdyne Warrior, a little spacesuit dude. I don't know what, he's just in his suit. The controls are simple enough. It's simple platform controls, left and right to run, down to crouch, up to jump, and fire to shoot your gun, kind of it. If you don't do anything, your character will lower his gun and turn to look out of the screen at you in an idle animation. Always good. Always good. Like an idle animation. Always good to see.
Gives a bit of life.
Immediately upon starting, you'll notice enemies bouncing away above you and gouts of flame spurting from the floor and a coin tempting you on the platform above. Okay, so this is kind of getting you, clearly telling you need to go up. It wants you to go up. This is classic sort of game design. There's something to avoid straight away. Flame. There's some things to shoot, but there's also something to collect. Probably best to go that way. That's kind of the way the game wants you to go. Contact with anything will make your energy go down alarmingly fast. So this is to be avoided at all costs. And I thought that maybe the collision detection was a bit on the punitive side. I was sort of, in that very first bit, you can stand on a little ledge and you feel like you're clear of the flame, but when the flame comes up, it does just get you and whittles down your energy quite quick. You kind of got to be pretty fast to get up there and then up to the top platform. You need to avoid avoiding anything, but that's quite hard to do with the nature of the flick screen. We've seen this in other flick screen games, a lot of flick screen games. We saw it in that one. What was that one that spooked? A stupid spooked or anything. Note of Yes Odd, even Antiriad and things like that. You walk onto another screen, you flick on, and there's an enemy there, and you're like, because you're not knowing sometimes what you're running or dropping into, because this goes in all directions, up, down, left, right. The fact that enemies you kill, they respawn as well. Immediately you leave the screen and go back to it. That can be tricky. So there might be something on the edge, you kill it. You kind of need to walk back quickly and it's just there again. You're like, God damn it. And remember, limited ammo. Yeah, So I'm a bit of I think the combo of respawning enemies with limited ammo is always a bad combo, because I don't think it's fair. Just give you unlimited ammo. If you're going to do unlimited enemies, then you need unlimited ammo. It's you can blast them. Some are also impervious to your starting weapon or take loads of shots to kill. So I don't know. So it's best to you need to sort of avoid everything really as you navigate these platform style levels. Like I said, from the start of the game, if you go up to the platform above you to the right, you'll come across the shop in the game. So it's on the sort of next screen to your right, but it's up on the top level. This is represented by a large arrow pointing up with the word up beneath it as well. You can't miss it. So this is the link back to your ship, and here, if you've collected enough money, you can buy some upgrades. So these allow you to increase the caliber of your gun, so you do more damage per shot. This increases from 4 to 6 and finally to 8. You can increase the automatic fire speed of your gun from 1, where it starts, which is quite slow, to 7, which is like rapid fire machine gun blast. You can buy energy to replenish what you've lost, and you will have lost some. Ammunition to replenish that. You get, I think, every bit of ammunition, you get you 5 more magazines. And you can even buy extra time for your mission, which all the way up to 999 seconds. I can't remember what you have to start with, but it's not that high. But it's you can take it all the way up to there. You can also, and you also get a cash bonus. To replenish, and you can buy extra time for your mission, for you to find the droids. For each droid you found, up to the first 3, you'll also get a cash bonus on entering the shop. So the more droids you found, the more cash you'll get for entering the shop, along with whatever you found dotted around the levels from killing enemies, who, when you kill them, some of them will drop coins for you to collect and stuff like that. For each droid you found, once you're done there, you can exit and continue your adventure. And once you've found all the droids, you can head back to your craft via the shop, where you're told you've completed the stage, given a bonus for your energy, time remaining before being taken to the next world. You find out, actually, the first world here is called Geminus. This is where you actually find that out. You're not told that anywhere else that I could notice. No. The second is Sirius, and the third is Arius. So that's the 3 planets. Should you clear all 3 worlds, then you will receive a congratulatory message, and it'll be time to enter your name into the high score table. So that's the game. It's a simple run around the screens, find the droids, leap around platforms, shoot stuff, upgrade your weapons, and try and make it through all 3 levels. As we saw with Retrograde, from a presentation point of view, this is top tier, especially for a single load. There's a lot here, a lot going on, lots of sort of, quite a broad range of visuals, things like that. The 3 levels are all very different, quite large, plenty of screens, and enemies to thwart you that are well designed and drawn. There's good sprite work, good background work on display here. The backgrounds range from the colourful sort of rocky world of the first level, to a more organic jungle style in the second, and finally more technological style for the third. They all look great. The sprites all animate very well. Everything moves good. The speed of the game is fast. Your character and all the sundry effects, like fire spouting from the ground and machines moving in the background and so on, are smoothly and well animated. There's not a flicker or a bit of slowdown that I could notice anywhere. This is well programmed. Like we saw with Retrograde, this is doing some really clever stuff, and it's doing it well, and everything moves at a really good pace. Similarly, it sounds great. Great tunes on the title screen. There's a nice tune in the shop screen. The interlevel sections have got tune, and the sound effects are strong throughout. These guys know how to get good results out of the machine. There's no doubt in that. That they are proficient on the C64. There's nothing, you cannot doubt that. Everything we saw in Retrograde obviously started here, but the main issue I had with this game was the flick screen nature of it. We've said this about all these kind of games, and those respawning enemies. I found navigating from screen to screen would often lead to me dropping to the screen below, or being instantly beset by an enemy, and the sudden and sharp loss of energy would just often lead to my death. Sometimes I'd fall into a pit, and I'd be trying to jump out of it to get where because there's pits and stuff that will drain your energy. There are environmental hazards all over the place. Your character can jump high and quite far, but the platforms are often, you've got to be, it's that thing where you've got to be holding up to the top right all the time to complete your full jump. And sometimes you might not want to, and you just fall short, and then you're into it's that kind of thing. But the platforms are often tricky to get to. I find myself not quite making it. Punishment for this is often very harsh. Falls into lava pits or whatever they are. And don't get me started on that blind icon that's down there. I think the blind icon is a really bad choice. I don't know why it's here. And I don't know why it's in the game. It just seems to be at odds with the rest of the game. Because the blind icon, basically, in the level, there's a skull. If you make contact with it, all the platforms disappear. Everything is hidden.
Yeah.
And the only way to see them is to shoot your gun, but you've limited ammo. So, again, this is really, really punitive. And it's also hard. It's hard enough when you can see the bloody platforms to navigate this damn thing, because it's quite maze-like. Because platforms, you'll jump up and down, you'll drop down, and you'll go around. But you'll go into the next platform, but then you won't be able to get up to where you were because it's they're blocked off. So you got to head downwards and around, and you have to try and work your way around stuff, and it's quite tricky. And there's enemies in awkward places, and it's that kind of thing. You get the blind icon, and you're just screwed. But the other thing is with the blind icon is it drops you into a pit that you can't jump out of. So
that's true.
I can't for the life of me think why anyone thought this was a good idea. I mean, it's budget. I get it. Okay, it's 3 levels, and they want to make it difficult, but. I just found that really, really a bad idea. It doesn't add anything. The game is challenging enough. You don't need this unusually painful and punitive addition. However, that said, there's a lot to like here. There is a lot to like, and I'm not. My problems with it were the sort of flick screen stuff. We've spoken about that before. As their first game on the C64, they had done graphics and some bits and bobs for the game Scorpius and things like that before, but this was ultimately their first outing properly. And you have to say it's pretty outstanding. What is here, the level of polish, the detail, the smoothness, the actual gameplay itself, it all plays very, very well. Compared to some of the guff we've seen recently, it's even better. And it's only $3 in comparison, with the whole package, it's £3. Yeah. For £3, this is incredible. It's pretty spectacular when you put all that together. It's, for me, I just found it a bit too hard and finicky to really enjoy. I can appreciate it from a technical level, but I think the game design chops get better as they go on, and we'll probably see this in Creatures and Monsters in Mayhem Land, whatever it is, and especially what we see in Retrograde. The step from this to Retrograde is pretty big in terms of design. But so I think that's what lets this down a bit. But I really appreciate the technical merits of it. And maybe the toughness is just down to my my aging reflexes. Maybe it's just if back then when I was sort of 18 when this came out, or 17, 18, and I'd have played this, I'd have been like, yeah, this is brilliant, and just whipped through it and been perfect at it sort of thing. But now maybe I've just not got that finely tuned teenage reflexes, and maybe that's part of it. But whatever, I did find it a bit too the design. Some of the design choices I thought were not that great, and it's the first game, so I'll let them off. Because everything else around it is excellent. I think it certainly deserved the 90% it received, maybe even higher in the 90s. It's just too damn hard for me. But I can certainly appreciate the journey they're on from here to Retrograde and beyond. And I think it's really good when we have some of the horror shows that we've seen recently, like Wild Streets and stuff like that. You get something like this, and it's like when it's in the right hands, the machine can sing and it can do the right things, and it can really, really sort of pull off a really good game. Just a bit too tough for me, but aside from that, I got to praise it. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, it's a very nice looking game, isn't it? Cyberdyne Warrior, has to be said. Really eye catching. Just right from the get go. So that nice title screen with the nice sort of colour bars that go across, and it all comes to life with the nice sort of I quite like that medium res writing with the kind of colour effect in it. Yeah. I think it always looks effective on a C64. Very underused. It reminds me of the kind of way that Atari 2600 used to approach some of their title screens, just big, bold typefaces with nice, bold sort of shadows and colours. I like that, and it looked the part, really rainbowy, which is nice. Really good. I thought the music was good. Thumpy music. Suited the game. Yeah, suited it nicely. It also had a nice tone, didn't it? Mm-hmm. Colourful. There's some nice little interstitials, isn't there, as well? That little get ready bit with the little soldier, and he sort of, he's got his gun there, hasn't he? And I quite like shoots it in the air, doesn't he? I like that. I thought the game looked okay, and the graphic was colourful. Maybe they're a bit small. I don't know,
but they just kind of work. They are what they are for a budget money. They will kind of work. But the colours of the environment look quite nice. It's perhaps, I don't know, maybe it's a little bit underpolished. I think that's maybe just its origin. So I think, they've got this so far, and they weren't going to develop it further, probably because they went on to do something else, like Retrograde or something like that. Mm-hmm. But the game itself, when I say this is underpolished, we're not talking, Wild Streets underpolished. We're just talking it's not as good as some of the games that these guys have done. The graphics are a little, not quite as, I don't know, they're not quite as good as perhaps other games of this type, but for budget money and for this, they're all right. The UI was a nightmare, though, wasn't it? On that weird purple background thing, lilac background. Just busy and on the wrong colour background. I don't quite know what the thought process was behind that. It looked odd and it was quite hard to read, and there's a lot on it.
Yeah,
it sort of just crazily crammed everything on, but that's maybe not the greatest choice, but okay, it is just there to be information, isn't it, about the game. I thought the animations on most things were nice. It had a kind of medium-res sci-fi Jet Set Willy about the whole thing, really.
Yeah, I guess.
It's kind of that vibe. But the music and the sound effects, I like the fact that when you go to that, when you press spacebar to bring it menu, you get a different bit of music there. You get a nice thumpy bit of music when you end it off. But there's little trimmings in the game which make it feel like a more polished game. And those things are kind of key in these kind of games. It just gives you a little sense of progression and getting somewhere. So I liked all of that. The only thing I didn't like was that it was too damn hard. It's a really competent experience that's just insanely difficult to get anywhere. Mm-hmm. I got as far as one would expect somebody to get without repeated plays of this, but it was quite punishing. And I like flick screen games. I'm not necessarily a fan of. This gave me the same vibes that game last episode gave me. The one where you're jumping around the platforms on the screens, and you've got to kind of remember where the platforms are a little bit. It's not as bad in this. Yeah, it's not as bad as Spooked, but the idea of it, the way the map works, is kind of the same. And like you said, the payoff, it feels like it's not a great payoff in it. It's not like it's got sort of, I don't know, it's not quite as, the payoff in the game isn't quite as good as I kind of hoped it would be. I think my hopes for the game were higher than the game was going to deliver for the money it was on and for the time it was made.
Yeah.
But that said, it's still, like, as you correctly point out, way better than some of the other crap that people are asking for at full price. So I was impressed with what I saw. And remember, this is part of a game compilation with 4 other games. And so as a third part of those, you're getting good value for money out of each one of these, let alone, 3 of them so far have been really good. I really enjoyed what I played. It was a bit repetitive, but I still enjoyed it. And in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, I'd have been smashing at this for budget money. I'd have been well happy with this purchase. If someone had got me this compilation and this was the first game I put in, I'd have been impressed. I'd have been like, this is good.
Yeah,
animation's
absolutely.
Good, no bugs, nothing's going to go crazy, and some good thumpy music. Well, that's nothing wrong with that, is there? So I thought this was a really nice looking, competent experience, just on the wrong side of difficulty for me. But I liked the use of colour in it, and I admire that. There's been a couple of games recently where the colour use has been really good. And this is another one. The 64 has got some good colours in there, so use them. Really good. Yeah, I enjoyed this. 90% seems good enough for me for this.
Yeah, it's fair enough. Cyberdyne Warrior, there we go. It's a good debut from the Rolands, who we all know go on to
very talented bunch, aren't they?
Much better
Very
things.
talented.
Yeah. There we go.
Yeah.
That's it. That's the first one. Let's get on. We've still got 2 more games this part, so let's have that second one now. So Graham, are you back in that sex bar with the robots again? Because this is Blue Angels.
I know. Talk about unfortunate naming. You go through your entire gaming life without any Blue Angel games, and then 2 Blue Angel games come along at once.
I know.
One of them is about naked robots and puzzles. The other one is about formation flying. You couldn't get more opposite, really, could you?
I don't even think these exist on the same spectrum.
I don't know where these exist and on whose spectrum, but okay. $9.99 this was. I'm not sure if that's disc or tape or whatever, but it doesn't matter. It's 61% though. That shouts problems. This was published by Accolade and developed by Artec Digital Productions. So this is designed by Paul Butler. Butler, I get you, Butler. And Rick Banks. And coded by Lisa Mendoza. Now, we say, joking aside, that's the train lady, isn't it? Or the train person.
Yeah.
And Apollo 18. So not bad. Not bad at all.
Yeah.
And it's also coded by Martin Edwards. He did Miniput, amongst other things. But
okay.
And the graphics are Grant Campbell, Ace of Aces, Killed Until Dead, The Train, Grant Campbell. So, okay. And the musician was Paul Butler. I get you, Butler. It's Paul Butler. He's in
what you going to do?
I'll get you, Butler. Butler. Oh, Butler, what are you doing, Butler? Clippy. Was it Clippy? I can't remember. Why am I even thinking about that stupid TV show? Anyway, so in case you're wondering what Blue Angels is, aside from naked robots showing you of their robo-boobies, the Blue Angels have been thrilling spectators, thrilling their spectators with precision. No, the Blue Angels have been thrilling spectators with precision flying for more than 40 years. That's a long time to be in the air, isn't it? Don't let them land. It's like, please let us land. Get performing. Told you, you're not landing until you've done the triple loop, and you ain't done it yet, as far as I've seen. A team of highly trained pilots in 6 FA-18 Hornets. The Blue Angels have performed in front of more than 210 million people. That's a lot of people in one place, isn't it?
Yeah.
In performances around the country. Now you can fly with this elite flying team. That's a decision and an offer they regretted immediately when they asked me. Let me tell you that. You'll learn how to handle an FA-18 and how to perform the high-speed, low-altitude maneuvers that are the hallmark of the Blue Angels. Most importantly, you'll learn how to be a member of the legendary team, performing these maneuvers in tight formation, precisely coordinated with split-second accuracy. Not my strengths, Adrian. Not my strengths, those things at all. Finally, you'll use these skills to participate in an entire air show as a pilot with the Blue Angels team. Dun, 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 dun. And then in brackets it says, failing that, you could just get your boobies out, your robo-boobies out if you like. It's all good. It's all good to us. So... crazy, isn't it? So the Blue Angels then are a equivalent, I guess, of the Red Arrows, aren't they?
Yeah, pretty much.
We've got the Red Arrows. They've got the Blue Angels. They've got Hornets. We've got whatever we've got them in. I don't know what airplanes the Red Angels. What am I doing? I've merged them.
Yeah, they'll be the purple something.
The purple raspberries. Now, let me tell you something, Adrian. Blue Angels is much more than a flight simulator. This is their words. You'll learn to fly an air show as part of the elite flight demonstration squadron of the US Navy. There are a number of things you have to learn before you can fly an air show. You must become familiar with flying the F-18 Hornet. I would say that's kind of key. If you're going to fly an air show, you better learn to fly.
Yes.
Or be really good at impersonating airplanes.
Yeah.
There you go. Yeah, wow, he's realistic. Put his arms out and everything. You must become familiar with flying the F-18 Hornet, performing maneuvers ranging from the simple to the complex at speeds close to that of sound, at heights sometimes less than 100 feet off the ground. That is pretty low for an airplane. And you must do this flying in formation with your teammates just a few feet from your wingtips. That's the wings of an airplane, not the shoes. That would be very close, wouldn't it?
That'd be very
The section will show you how to select the various options. This section, this is in the instruction manual, will show you how to select the various options available in Blue Angels and how to take a look around the program before you join the Blue Angels yourself. So this entire game is geared around you becoming a Blue Angel and a Blue Angel in formation flying. It's a formation flying simulator. Who would have thunk that?
Not me.
Of all the directions you could take flying simulators, was that the one you wanted to do?
Probably not.
Now, let me tell you something about me and flight simulators. I can't even fly out of formation. So flying in formation
then.
So it's exactly. I just fly wild. I'm a wild flyer. Always have been. Always will be. I was born a wild flyer, and I'll die wild. I have died wild flying many times.
Yeah.
Trying to get me to fly in the front of or any position inside of a diamond is a fool's errand, the likes of which cannot be measured. Anyway, I did try. So there's some nice selection screens and graphics here. This is a multi-disc loading game, and the loading on this one isn't so bad. The idea of this game simulation, as I said, is to join and be part of the Blue Angels. So you actually learn to fly an F-18 a la the C-64 way, and then you join the Blue Angels and fly in an air show. I mean, that's the game. That's how you do it.
That is.
And this entire thing is geared around you learning how to do that. It's geared around it. Doesn't make it very exciting, though.
No, it doesn't.
So you'll take control of this F-18 Hornet, as I said, gradually learn the ropes. Now, this means learning to do maneuvers. And I'll talk about the way it does this because, well, they could have done it better, I feel. And we played a game where you was a stunt plane many moons ago, did we not? It was it the old Acrojet?
Acrojet.
Now, that managed to make you do sort of stunts and stunt flying in kind of a more exciting way, I felt.
Yeah.
Because you could be outside the aeroplane looking in. That's nice to be able to do that, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
All right, anyway, we'll come back to that. So this is a loading game. At least it's not too terrible when it loads on this occasion. From the outset, you're in the land of options, though, when you start this thing, and you'll need the manual because the choices are very confusing if you don't understand anything about aviation. And you won't, because it'll ask you things like select position, diamond position, anyone? Diamond, lead solo, opposite solo. What's your position, Adrian? What's your position? If you don't choose, it just moves on. So if you don't select anything, it just moves on anyway. It's like, oh, you're a diamond every day of the week. I knew it the minute you loaded this up. So you don't really get to choose if you got to hang about. So you got to make snapshot decisions about your entire flying career. I wasn't ready for that kind of responsibility. It threw me completely. I wasn't ready. So anyway, I chose a diamond, I think. So you've got no frame of reference. Then you'll see some kind of pilot roster. And it's with all this kind of sort of loop driving, kind of this like driving music loop type sort of noise in the background. If you can't decide on these things, it's a bit pushy, I felt. So you get from you choose your position, diamond, lead solo. Then you need to choose whether you want spectator mode, simulator, practice maneuvers, simulate air show, practice air show, Adrian, air show. Are you ready for the air show? I felt pressure when I was like, and then this pilot list. Like, what do I need to know the pilot list for? Well, you need to know that because they're your roster. They're in your roster. That's your formation team. You need to know their capabilities, Adrian. I'm like, I am no judge of anyone else's flying capabilities. There's no point in me showing the roster of the diamond. I'm going to be the one out of that diamond. I'm the rough diamond. They're the real ones. No, this isn't happening. No. Anyway, I tried to sort of choose at this point, and then you get to choose the maneuver type because I chose to practice some maneuvers. I better learn some maneuvers, right? And this is on the screen that you see. It's like I guess it's a black and white scan of an aeroplane, I think. It might have been drawn, but it looked like a scan of an F-18 with a kind of menu in the top left-hand corner in kind of a lilac and light blue with kind of red and yellow and green writing. It's like some kind of rainbow colour spectrum went crazy. And then, so you get to choose the maneuvers. So you can choose takeoffs, maneuvers, position menu, which goes back to the position menu, or your main menu. So you've got this kind of selection menu screen. It's all in the top left-hand corner, but it feels like you've got to make a decision. And it's like, I don't, I'm ready. After that, I chose diamonds, and it was diamond takeoff menu. Do you want a diamond takeoff? Diamond takeoff with loop? What do you want to do? What is it? What do you want to learn? And in the corner of this, there was a description of a box, like a 3D box, like a cube, with a demonstration of the maneuver I was doing, and it was just a straight line. It was just a line. Like, what maneuver am I doing? Am I just flying in a straight line? Is that the maneuver I'm going to practice?
Yeah.
And it genuinely was. Anyway, after that came more options, Adrian. Do I want the help sort of information system off or on? The speed, do I need it high, medium, or low? Do I need a left DDI? Do I need that on? Should it be on, Adrian?
Should.
I don't know.
I think it should.
The right DDI, sound is on. The air show type. I'm like, what? There's a whole bunch of options. Now, don't get me wrong. You can work your way through the manual and read the manual, and it's pretty extensive, and it describes all of this stuff. Mm-hmm. But as with all of these games, the more options, the more intensity you build at the front, my expectation increases for when I get to my flying experience.
You mean so you didn't find the flying experience enjoyable?
Well, no, because they're buying my investment into this. The more options you give me, the more screens and the more exciting you make it sound, and the more choices you remove from me. And then you show me a cube with a line in it. I'm like, that's it. I'm sold. That's it. I don't know what I'm doing. I have no idea what this is. But let's go, let's fly. So when the game finally starts, or the flying finally starts, after all your options and you've gone to start flight, you'll, depending on what you've chosen, of course, you'll start. Now, I just immediately started in the air on this particular one. Mm-hmm. And so you'll get a view. So the top part of the view is the sky, and it's like an external view of the plane when it finally arrives on the visual. And the bottom, you've got like a UI. On the left-hand side, you've got like an instruction screen. It's like the joystick, and it tells you whether to pull up, push down, fly straight, press your fire button. It tells you what to do. So that's kind of a QTE. Yeah. So this game is fundamentally a QTE experience because you're just being told, move left, move right now. So imagine a flying Dragon's Lair game without dragons, without Dirk, without the princess, without the castle, without any of the medievally kind of... In fact, don't imagine that. Oh, it's nothing like that. Completely the opposite of that, really. But the idea of the QuickTime is that it's teaching you to fly by telling you what to do, right? And then in the middle of the screen, there's like a little, like a 3D view. Well, 3D, like a view of. It's a bit like a mini version of the Aliens game. You know when you got to fly through the hoops.
Yeah, or what we saw in Dan Dare 3.
In Dan Dare 3, yeah. So it's a mini version of that, but with an airplane instead. And as you maneuver, the squares that come towards you sort of move position. So it gives you that idea of flying into it. And it's so you can manage the idea of the vectors and you can see what you're doing. And then to the right of that, it's like tells you with sort of a few commands what's happening in the flight. So you've got kind of information, what you need to do, what it is you're doing. And you find yourself looking at that view more than you do the big view at the top.
Yeah.
And then on the right-hand side, there's, danger warning, Will Robinson, if you're doing something crazy or your wheel falls off, you'll get notified by that. These things will never happen, though, because this simulator is ridiculously easy. I mean, now, don't get me wrong. It's not that it's easy to do. The maneuvers are easy to pull off because you're told exactly what to do. There's no guesswork. And I mean, when you go into an air show, I suppose it's different. Maybe it's different. I didn't do the full air show. I didn't want to get that far.
I did.
But But when I went through this sort of practice mode and practiced and tried to learn a few of the moves, they all kind of work the same. Now, in the top view, you'll see the airplane from behind and it will perform the move. Now, I did a loop-the-loop at one point and it just went, there was like a grey bit at the bottom and a blue bit at the top, and an airplane kind of waddled into view. And it went, woo, and then the blue disappeared and the ground came up, and then it came back down again. It was like, well done. And then after that, this kind of graph chart appeared where it's got like a view of, there's a graph and it tells you the maneuver you were trying to do. And then you've got, I can't what they equate to, but you've got an average error at the bottom, like how many errors you made, basically it's how far you are off the line. The line in the middle is the kind of, if you stay on the line, that's perfect. And it measures I think it's how much you wing, this is not the professional terms, your wing wobble, your nose wibble, and your up and downy bit. So it measures that.
Your tail flappage.
Your tail's flapping. So you get 3 graphs essentially, and if you're on the line, you're doing fine. If you're off the line at any point, it tells you what percentage of error there is. Now, of course, if you're formation flying and you're in a tight formation, if you start veering off uncontrollably you're going to hit another airplane, and an air show becomes an air disaster very quickly. Mm-hmm. Let me tell you. But the idea is that the more you do this, the more you can learn to train these moves, and you make no margin of error. And I did a loop and a few of the maneuvers, and I wasn't really making any errors. I have to say, it was fairly easy. And when I went into the air show to do the formation flying, or try the formation flying, I'm not exactly sure I did it right. I'll be honest, because I'm not exactly sure I got to where I needed to be, because I kept not doing what I wanted to do. So I kind of got a bit frustrated with it. So my experience with this game kind of ended at the point where I'd gone through a few of the maneuvers to try and been told how crap I was at them with these graph charts. And that kind of felt like that was maybe this game. That even if you did the air show, after the air show, you're going to get, God, such a brilliant air show. Your telemetry was off, your wibble wobble was down, and your flippy flap was well off. You nearly killed all your co-pilots. And this is their names on the roster. You nearly killed, Bobby Stevenson and Clappy Joe. I didn't mean to kill anyone. So my main issue with this is that there's a big detachment between what you're sold as the game is going to be and what the reality is, which is you looking at a tiny airplane in a load of squares zooming towards you, looking at a joystick thing to tell you what to do, and occasionally you'll notice an airplane flapping around at the top. It does, and that's all there is. That's it. Now, maybe people like doing that. I didn't think much to it. I thought the experience was weak. For an Accolade game, this has got to be the weakest Accolade game I think I've played. I didn't enjoy my time with it. Maybe there's people out there. I didn't get a feeling of formation flying from it at all. I didn't. In fact, I just felt continually punished for crap flying. And it wasn't really helping me get better. It just kept telling me I wasn't near a line. I was this percentage off. I had a maximum error percentage of this. How is that helping me get better at this? Why would I want to? If you pull off an air show, so what? What's the great payoff in it? If I'm just going to get another chart at the end of it. Nah. I think they made some fundamental errors in this. I think the idea of a formation flying game is probably exciting. I suspect if this is out on bigger formats like the Amiga, there's probably a lot more to it. There's probably 3D views, and there's probably a whole bunch of stuff we can watch the air show back in 3D from a tower view. I bet there's loads more. This feels like it's got a lot stripped out of it for the C64, and it makes it very unexciting, which probably in a game where you're flying in a diamond probably should be a bit more exciting. I never felt like I was in a diamond. I felt like I was just flying about, not doing a great deal, and trying to avoid steering too far off a line. Not very exciting, that. What about you?
No, it's strange, this one, isn't it? It's really strange. I'm not entirely sure what to make of it. I mean, like you said, there's the usual Accolade list of options, loads of things to choose from. But the actual game part is just follow some button presses until you finish the flight and then see how badly you did.
Yeah. Tell me I've done good things.
That's literally it. You went very good. Oh, well, I thought I was. I pressed the buttons exactly as you told me to.
Yeah. You went percentage mark off. Why was I supposed to know that?
But there doesn't seem to be much game here. I mean, I did the air show, but it was just boring, as I know. And the practice mode, the early practice mode, doesn't even have you flying in the sky. It's just the box bit. If you just try that. So, and I got that wrong. Because one of the controls is forward and fire button, isn't it, to speed up? So I didn't notice it said fire button and just press forward.
Okay.
And obviously that just dove me into the ground. I was like, why is the box like, what's it doing? Oh, I'm dead. Oh,
now that's an air show.
Oh, what have I done?
Oh no, we've lost an F-18 Hornet.
I've killed Clappy Joe. Anyway, but yeah, there's not much game here. But I guess if you want to try and get those errors down to 0%, then you might get something out of this. If you're an avid user of Excel, I reckon you'd really like this. If you're really looking to find those errors and get things down to 0, you're going to love this. But after a few flights, I felt very underwhelmed. very underwhelmed.
Yes, I felt less bell curve and more bell end playing this game.
It's just, I don't know what I felt. No, it's the whole thing with display aircraft and watching them and feeling the suspense of them coming so close to disaster. That's kind of all lost here. I mean, it was because I was close to disaster a lot, but there's the representation of flying. The C-64 just can't do it. It's just incapable of recreating that in any meaningful way. And when you've got like a blue plane in front of you, and I had two blue wingtips on just on the left and right of my screen, but I'm looking at a box flying through some squares with the joystick commands being yelled at me. I'm like, nothing's moving, and I don't know. There's no meaningful payoff, like you said. You just watch the display at the bottom around the blue and green at the top. I guess it's an admirable attempt at something different, but I mean, because it all works and it's there, but it's just too empty to really engage in any meaningful way. There's just, what do you do in it? What do you do? There's nothing to do.
It's hard to get enjoyment out of it, isn't it?
Yeah. It's the BAE Hawk trader.
Hawk versus Hornet.
Hawk versus Hornet, yeah. That's what the Red Arrows fly. Yeah. It used to be the Gnat, but then they upgraded to the Hawk.
The Hawk. Yeah, well, if they'd have seen me flying in the Blue Angels, they'd have never let me in the country. They'd been like, can't have them here.
No. You promised us Robo-Boob.
bring that. Never mind this aeroplane
That's the kind of
business.
display we want, not this nonsense. Oh, there we go. Blue Angels, 61%. I think that's, again, it's like a, what is it? kind of score, isn't it? We don't, it's accolade and there's some nice options and it's kind of impressive, but there's not much game here. Very little game. Let's move along. We've still got one more of this part. Let us fly out of that one and into the next one. Because that, Graham, the next one, well, it's Dynamite Dux.
Aye up, it's Dynamite Dux, isn't it?
hey, have you seen this? Dynamite Dux. It's another
Dynamite
arcade
Duck.
conversion here. In the oddly titled Dynamite Dux, or maybe in the case of the C-64, it should have been called Dynamite Duck.
Yeah.
Yes. Not since my case against the Never-Ending Story. There's been a blatant misrepresentation or Bad Nudes versus Dragon Ninjas, or whatever it is.
Yes.
You can't just take... Anyway, this is originally from Sega in the arcade. It was released in 1989. In Japan, Game Machine listed Dynamite Dux on their February 15th, 1989 issue as being the third most successful table arcade unit of the month. Pretty good. The home 8-bit version was published by Activision, developed by Core Design.
Ooh.
Tomb Raider people.
Okay.
I couldn't find any names attached to this. None. Just Core Design. It was in-house at Core Design. So whoever worked at Core Design did it. I don't know who they were, though. Anyway, so it might be the same people who did Rick Dangerous. Who knows? Anyway, according to the manual, this is dynamite action all the way.
Okay.
Yeah. The story, such as it is as follows. When little Lucy is stolen by the terrible Acha-Cha, her two friends, Bin and Pin, really do get angry. They are determined to get her back. You can help either Bin or Pin take on many different types of baddie. Be warned. These baddies are especially evil and very cunning, like sumo pigs, snappy dogs, boxing crocs, packs of rats, roller skating cats, and more.
Ooh.
But both Bin and Pin have simply incredible punches. When they land a punch, kapow! No one stands up. With water spouts, volcanoes, and walls of fire to stop you, what do you think will happen when you get your hands on Acha-Cha? Just remember, Lucy needs you.
Okay. Okay.
What's all this mean? I don't know. As the game loads, you get a version of the intro from the arcade, where we see Lucy, not in the sky with diamonds, but in a field of red with Pin or Bin. You take your pick. I don't know which one it is.
Pin or Bin.
Before the evil Acha-Cha appears, shrinks her into a bubble and makes off with her. Pin or Bin follows through a magic doorway, and the rest of the game loads in. So that opening title screen sort of thing, in the arcade, it's quite cool and nice and well drawn and everything. Here on the C64 version, it reminded me of that Altered Beast intro. It's like, what's going on? It's all grey. What's happened?
Very blocky.
It's like set sprites to expand. It's like, you could have drawn this better. There's not much on screen. You could have done it as, I don't know. The title screen is, again, an approximation of the arcade game with Pin or Bin wandering across the bottom, pulling a Sega and Activision logo behind them, and a simplistic piece of music that goes a bit wrong towards the end.
does, yeah.
I don't know what else to describe it. It's just like they forgot. Like this, the player went just off on one. I was like, oh,
it went wrong.
There's nothing else to do but press fire and get going and enter into a world of grey.
This is true.
There's no stage map like you get in the arcade. The colourful streets and shops of the arcade have been replaced by grey and yellow and black and a little bit of green. That's not a good combo, is it?
Never good. That's not a good combo. No.
You control Pin or Bin, a tall red duck, and you must wander down the street punching or avoiding enemies that come your way. This is 3D, I guess, in that it has depth, so you can walk into and out of the street, and left and right move you that way. So it's that kind of thing. So it's like a belt scroller in that sort of sense, in that kind of thing. And you can walk in diagonals as well. If you tap the fire button, you do a small punch, but holding down the fire button lets Pin or Bin wind up his punch to a medium-sized fist, and then to a huge fist to do more damage, a fist that Fisto would be proud of. You can also jump, and to do that, you must tap the space bar. Awkward controls. That's an awkward, especially if you have to jump over pits later on. Oh, it's annoying. As you wander down the street, various enemies will come bouncing towards you, such as dogs and cats and moose and all the other kinds of stuff. All those things they said, roller skating cats and boxing crocs and all that kind of stuff. They just come down the road towards you. You can punch them if you want to, but you're probably best off just walking around them. Just avoid them. But you can pick up weapons such as rocks, guns, rocket launchers, and flamethrowers to do away with them. This game is really weird. It's totally all over the shop. Like, Jesus, these really cute things that come and punch, and then you flamethrower. It's like, oh, okay. I mean, it's all like the arcade game. I don't know what was going on. The game itself takes place across the full screen. And I guess the full screen scrolling in all directions is pretty smooth. It's actually there's no judder or anything. It's smooth scrolling in all directions. So at the top, overlaid over the screen, because there's no sort of space for the UI. It's just overlaid at the top in yellow. I think it's yellow. Is it yellow or white? It's yellow at the top and bottom, I think. I want to say it's yellow.
Yeah.
At the top, it could be white. At the top, you have your score and lives left. And at the bottom is your energy bar and ammo indicator for any weapons you have picked up. In the arcade game, the sort of lives icon is the duck. In this, it just looks like a skull.
It does.
It's like, oh, that's taking this game seems on its journey to the C64 taking a turn to like Mundainesville. It's like it's been converted to running Grimsby. And that's from there, so I can say it. I don't care, I'm not offending anyone. As you progress, you'll come across various bosses, some of which need a specific weapon to take out before you can progress. So there's like a fire one quite early in the first level, and there's a sort of is it a water one? No, it's a fire one, isn't it? Yeah, it's a fire one. You find you find a water hose, water cannon, and you can fire water at it to put it out. This version is a multi-load. But it does have all the levels of the arcade game that I could see. It does miss out, though, on this weird bonus boxing fight games between the levels in the arcade that I had a look at.
Yeah.
But they're not in here. So they've cut out all the interstitial bits are gone. You've just got the levels. Should you make it to the end of the 6 levels, then you get to fight Acha-Cha, and beating him frees Lucy back into the field from the beginning with Pin or Bin. So this game is the arcade game, but with all the fun scientifically extracted from it. That's the only way I can put it. Point 1, okay. There's no music in the levels, bar when the bosses arrive. That's, the arcade game and the Amiga and ST all have music. There's no real reason why this doesn't either. Since it's a multi-load, you could have some music here. There's music on the title screen. There's music when bosses, but not when you're just wandering along. Because when you remove it, well, grey streets and drab sound effects makes a really dull experience. It's like walking. All the colour has also been leached from the game, from the arcade game. Your sprite is okay, I guess, but the enemy sprites range from okay to ugly expanded horrors that don't look good at all. Those pigs that come along towards you, it's like, Jesus. So that was point 2. Point 3 is that it's very easy because you can just walk past most things until you get to a boss. As long as you've saved your ammo, you can take them out in no time. Like, there's no challenge. There's very little challenge here. You also get 2 continues as well as 5 lives. That's 15 lives. So wandering through this, and I was just wandering. I got pretty far. I died more when there's a bit on, I think it's in the second level. I think that's the most I died at was when you have to walk down these sort of slopes, but the slopes are not quite at 45 degrees. So because of you walking diagonal, you got 45 degrees. I kept falling off the bottom because I kept, because they're not at 45 degrees. Pain in the ass, but it is what it is.
Yeah.
So I reckon a couple more attempts, I probably would have seen the end screen for sure. It's not very hard, this. Point 4 is that the 2-player mode has been excised as well, so that's gone. You get to play just as Pin or Bin, whichever one it is, I don't know. So this game, again, robs the game of fun that was evident in the arcade game and also makes the title not make sense. Like Bad Dude versus Dragon Ninjas, as it should have been. It's now, like I said, Dynamite Duck. And it's not very dynamite. It's just, it's in the worst conversion we've seen. Don't get me wrong. We've seen a hell of a lot worse than this. But it commits that sin of robbing all the fun out of the arcade game. And having played that, there wasn't much in that either. I had a go at it on MAME, and I was like, it's just not a particularly great arcade game. It's all right. And I think it got by at the time, sort of thing, and it was a bit weird and a bit different. But when the play of it was actually not very good. As well as we've come to see, not all arcade games were great. So porting average and ripping out any semblance of what made it passable in the arcade leads to a bland experience. Dynamite Dux, well, Dynamite, it should have been just dreary duck, drab duck, dull duck, whatever, take your pick. Maudlin mallard, I don't know, rubbish. It's not very good. Any of these is more suitable to this. It's just a really bland experience, and it got 57%, which I think is a bit too high. I'd have put this in the 40s because I don't. Technically, okay, it kind of works, and it's kind of the arcade game if you squint, but it's bereft of any entertainment value. So it's dull as hell. What did you think?
Oh, exactly the same. I mean, that intro was really horrible, wasn't it? Blocky thing, that. Naff music, set the scene, but not in a good way. No. I was like, oh no, I'm dreading what came next. Then loading happened. I was like, oh, the loading. Game graphics, a lot of green, grey and black, wasn't there?
Yeah. Yes.
Some nice ideas, maybe, around the kind of way you walk around the map. Maybe we've not quite seen it quite as expansive as that on a C64 game. I don't think, not many times anyway. So
no.
You've got a lot of game to, well, not a lot of game to explore. There's just a lot of screen space to explore. But the problem, as we've said many times before, is that if you make a game with lots of expansive stuff to walk around, you got to fill it with lots of stuff. And they don't.
No.
I was being attacked by the most random collection of things. Was it dog heads flapping? And when you hold down when you fire button and it does that super punch, I was like, oh, it just emitted a giant blocky sprite. I'm like, that's no. The sound was really sparse, and that kind of killed the game's atmosphere dead, didn't it? It was like, goodness me, if the Dynamite Dux wasn't struggling to be entertaining, make it silent more or less, that'll do it. And so I just kind of walked around avoiding stuff. What a dull idea for a game, that. Just walked around. I actually came to a crevice where I couldn't get past, and I optionally chose to dive in and die. I was like, at this point, I'm like, I no longer want to continue. I've had enough. So aside from the fact that you do get to play over quite a large screen area, and I suppose you could describe the enemies as varied, but they just kind of appear in annoying clusters and they just follow to where you were, so you can really easily avoid them. It's not hard. Just go to the top, they come towards you, then you go around them. There we go. I got to this one boss. It took me about 3 hits. I just found an angle where it couldn't get me. It was just, I think was it a skull? I can't remember what it was. It was at the first stage. Got to the end of that and just blasted it. And then I wasn't enjoying any of this. I was just like, It didn't have any excitement at all.
No life. There's no life to it.
No, I thought ducks were quite entertaining, but turns out really not.
Yeah.
Weird and dull game. That's my final statement on it, which pretty much matches exactly what you said. Yeah. And then as for Dynamite Dux, well, no, it would have been better if they did. That's all I'm saying. Just blow them up.
Yeah.
But they didn't, did they?
There's
can quack off.
Indeed. Someone's done a long play of this on YouTube, because of course they have, the C64 version. And when I watched it, I was like, there's music in the levels. So I went back and was like, look, have I missed a key or something? You want to press M?
Yeah.
But then I read their comments and it was like, there's no music, I just overlaid it because it was so boring or something.
Yeah. Exactly.
But even when you did put music up, I was like, oh, this seems a bit more interesting. It seems a bit more enjoyable. As we've said loads of times, you put music on something and it instantly makes it a little bit more engaging. Why this is there is music in the arcade and there is music on the Amiga and the Steve versions, but not on this.
Well, again, it led to my final thought about this, which was this felt and looked like a kind of, just chuck a 64 version out, make it look kind of, and it was no more thought to it than that. It's got way too high a score though. 57%, get lost. 27% at best.
It's a bit
and you didn't even think to put a quacking sound in it, which you could have done. A very basic quack sound would have gone a long way in this. It would have felt like you were quacking. But instead of quacking up.
Quacking on gas.
Anyway, it's not Dynamite Dux, is it? There was no dynamite, and it wasn't really a duck. So, and they've spelt ducks weirdly anyway. So no, thanks. Go away. Goodbye. Thanks. See ya. No.
And there we go. So that's it. That's our first 3 games for this week. We're going to go away, take a quick break, recharge our batteries, and come back, see what was going on both the small and big screen in March 1990. See you in a mo. And we're back. Let's see what was going on. First of all, in TV, in the world of TV in the UK in March 1990. Well, Graham, on the 12th of March, ahead of the first free legislative election in the German Democratic Republic, BBC One airs an edition of Panorama in which Fred Emery reports from the GDR and West Germany on the opportunities and strains facing the Germans.
Tumbleweeds there.
I don't know what to say about that, but that happened.
I imagine that was probably very interesting at the time for those people very interested in that.
I imagine it was. What was more interesting, though, on the same day was the final episode of Blankety Blank, presented by Les Dawson. That was broadcast on BBC One. It will return, though, in 1997 with Lily Savage as its host.
It did.
So we found a clip of Blankety Blank from 89 and 90. What's more interesting, apart from I found myself laughing at Les Dawson's jokes because I always find him funny, was the language in the sort of used by the presenter at the BBC when he was very formal, wasn't it? Very formal.
Very posh, yes.
So there was a season, right, so it goes like this. In 30 minutes here on BBC One, we begin a major season of films featuring Meryl Streep, this time starring with Robert Redford in Out of Africa, a remarkable story about a young Danish girl who becomes entwined in a triangular relationship set against the stunning backdrop of the Kenyan landscape.
Wowza, that's sold.
I was there, yeah. On BBC Two shortly, there's a curtain raiser to the English National Opera's production of Engelbert Hincks' Hansel and Gretel, an evocative staging at the London Coliseum which transposes it from a fairy tale setting to post-war England, and the performance of which can also be heard in stereo on Radio 3.
Yes, You see, this was when they had classic, old-school continuity announcers.
Yeah.
And then they obviously, went through a complete transition into, and they got young folk in, didn't they? They got youth in there. So now it'd just be, now on BBC One, there's a film about Africa in that. Enjoy it.
It's got Meryl Streep in it.
And someone called Robbie Bedford. Anyway, enjoy.
True.
And they'd never be able to say Engelbert Hincks, Hansel and Gretel. It'd just be, I don't know how they'd say that. Old Hinky Dink. Go and watch Hinky Dink with Hansel and Gretel on BBC Two. It's also in stereo. Maybe laugh it was on stereo on Radio 3. Right, put it on Radio 2. It aligns with BBC 2, Radio 2.
Yeah, Radio 3 was the push station, though.
Wasn't it just, it was the one when you change it was always, no, whenever you hit that, no matter what you do with Radio 3, it's always that, as soon as you turn it.
Always. And when he introduces Les Dawson, the thing he goes, and now coming up, a man whose largesse requires him to have 2 shows on the BBC. It's like, that's what
he does, yeah, largesse. You don't hear these words now, do you? You don't hear them on the continuity announcers. They're not like that anymore.
I know. I thought, was that a polite way of saying he's a bit on the chunky side? He's largesse.
I guess yes. I don't know. It's too posh for me. I'm not sure I fully understand the language.
Understand. Maybe he's been. Maybe in posh circles they're going, oh, that's the he's been glove slapped. But, who knows?
Les Dawson wouldn't have taken that lying down though. He was not a man to mess with.
No, he wasn't. No, he'd have come back with a witty rejoinder. Anyway, 20th of March, Chancellor John Major delivers the first budget to be broadcast on television.
Wow, killer TV that.
I went and watched it because I found it on YouTube. The spitting image version of his voice was quite spot on. So we're cutting taxes. God. He says something about cutting taxes and everyone bursts out laughing. I was like, what's funny? I don't get it.
Maybe he hadn't done his flies up.
Maybe he was showing his John Major.
Or his Manic Minor. Who knows which. My flies are done and you can all see my winky. Sorry about that.
Oh dear. 25th of March, British satellite broadcasting launches on cable as a rival to Sky Television, which launched the previous year.
I thought this had already happened. My timeline was way off, but I remember it. I remember all the brouhaha. I certainly do.
Yeah, but because they were supposed to be first to the post, and then Rupert Murdoch came in with Sky, and because we'll link to the thing. It's worth reading about the history of this and how it all transpired, because there was like 4 companies bidding for it, and the Sky thing was, they were like, oh, they'll never do that. They'll never get that working.
Yeah. And wrong.
You can't encrypt stuff on an analog channel. That can't be done.
Wrong.
But, you know.
And there was VHS versus, and there was a VHS versus, what do you call it? The Betamax format. There was a bit of that about it because they were like, one was sort of super digital quality. We need a square reel because the quality of the image would be so good. Sky was like, yours image quality is so crap. We're like, but it'll do, won't it? It'll do.
It'll do.
Classic disruption, that. Classic disruption.
Blu-ray versus HD DVD.
Yeah, totally that.
Where
totally
HD DVD was better quality than Blu-ray, but Blu-ray.
You know, it's bad when Amstrad pull out and go, it can't be done. You're like, bloody hell, they connected a toaster to an hairdryer.
Absolutely.
They can't do it. No one can do it.
They sent me an email from their hair straightener.
So if Amstrad are pulling out, and of course that's Alan Sugar's out. Well, it's still his company, I guess, maybe. But if Amstrad pull out, it's bad times for all, and they did. They went like, no, we can't meet this specification. No one can make set tops that cheap. You just make them really crap.
Yep. Because they were saying that the Sky's aerials would have to be like 1.5 meters wide or something, which would need individual planning permission for every building it was going to be placed on. Nobody's going to make a business out of that. They'll get it lower than that because it's fundamentally flawed. Yeah. So they won't go ahead with it, or they will. And if they do, you're screwed. And they were screwed.
So the thing they didn't think of was the concept of the loss leader. You know what? Let's just take the loss for now, because once we get enough people paying the subscription, it won't matter.
Yeah, absolutely. And then a year or so down the line, they buy BSB, don't they?
Yeah, they bought them anyway.
Yeah.
And then sent out a signal which set all the square reels on fire, I bet. They just burst into flames.
Just broadcast a picture of Rupert Murdoch's face. It can't be turned off.
Like on Halloween 3, it's it's just his face. It's on all the channels. Turn it off.
26th of March, the science fiction soap Jupiter Moon makes its debut on the Galaxy Channel. 150 episodes are commissioned, but only 108 are aired before the series is cancelled in December.
Yes, ambitious that.
Yeah. So I've never heard of it. The series is set in the year 2050 and concentrates on the spaceship Ilia in semi-permanent orbit above the space city on Jupiter's moon Callisto. The Ilia is home to a university, and many of the programme's main plot strands revolve around the lives of the students, helping the programme to deal with more mundane issues despite its far-flung setting. The secondary plot deals with an attempt to travel to the stars, known as the Daedalus Project.
150 episodes, huh?
So we're out in space here. So what's the plot then? It's about a university. Why are we in space? Why don't we just make this about a university? Well cheaper to make.
Yeah, it didn't look great, did it? The production values weren't. There was a lot of visual-ish stuff in those early episodes. It soon disappears, though. It's like mundane rubbish.
But it did make me laugh because there's a clip I found, which is Jupiter Moon Space Cadet Daniel having a bad moment. But it cuts to someone. They're just there with bongos. They've got some bongos on a space station.
Yes, absolutely. And Space Cadet Daniel, of course, is Chris Morris.
Was it?
That's Chris Morris. Yep. That's the Chris Morris. That's Mr. Brass Eye himself.
Wow, I didn't recognise him. Although I suppose I should have done. Wow. It wasn't very good. It really wasn't. What I saw.
No. So the Galaxy Channel didn't actually outlast the Galaxy. Didn't outlast the Galaxy chocolate bar, I don't think. Well, look at it.
I'd have preferred a Galaxy chocolate bar to this.
I think so.
Yeah. 27th of March, BBC One airs the first of 2 flashback episodes of EastEnders as part of a storyline in which Diane Butcher, played by Sophie Lawrence, ran away from home.
She did.
The episodes show Frank Butcher, who's played by Mike Reed, going to meet his teenage daughter at King's Cross Station after she contacted him following a 3-month absence. Scenes showing Frank waiting for Diane and their subsequent reunion are interspersed with flashbacks to January, showing her leaving home and living rough on the streets. Sophie Lawrence did research among real homeless people for the storyline.
I like that. She did real research by going to homeless people and go, what's it like being homeless? It's really crap. Thanks. Thanks.
I'll method the shit out of that.
Taxi.
Yeah, absolutely. Take me to my Kensington home.
Diane, what you doing? Yeah. Frank.
God, EastEnders, eh? It's in the news,
exactly.
There we go. 28th of March, ITV airs the Granada documentary drama Who Bombed Birmingham? The programme, which looks at the 1974 Birmingham pub bombings and the conviction of the Birmingham Six, names several people believed to have actually been behind the bombings.
Absolutely.
I found this on YouTube, but it's kind of like within some kind of weird, odd American show where they're sort of watching it. 2 parts.
That's strange, that.
Yeah, very strange. But I don't know what to really make of this. I mean,
well, I think the Birmingham Six were later found not guilty, weren't they? They were exonerated completely.
Yeah, because that's the film was made. Is it in the name of the father?
No,
Daniel Day-Lewis one. Daniel Day-Lewis, Pete Postlethwaite.
I don't know if that's to do with the Birmingham 6 or another 6, but
was that
probably.
the Guildford? Was that the Guildford one?
I don't know. But either way, I do know that the Birmingham 6, I'm pretty sure they were found innocent.
Yeah.
So another classic English miscarriage of justice.
That was the Guildford 4, sorry. Another miscarriage of justice.
But I'm reasonably sure the Birmingham 6 was a miscarriage of justice and they were all later released. I'm not sure that they didn't serve quite a bit of time either for that. So terrible, really.
New shows for the month. 6th of March was Chancer.
I remember it. I never watched it, but I remember it. I remember the sort of show. I think I remember it more by its adverts on in between. I never actually sat and watched an episode. It's a bit like Boone. I've never seen an episode of Boone in my life, but I know that I recognise it from the TV adverts for it.
Well, I mean, the theme tune for this was by Jan Hammer.
It was.
It was no Miami Vice though.
But it's not. It's not that Jan Hammer. It's another Jan Hammer. It's Jan Toffee Hammer. That is Little Hammer.
Jan Sledgehammer.
Yeah, it's not as delicate or good as the original.
Fine Hammer.
Claw.
But this starred Clive Owen as well, weirdly.
It did, yeah. Early role for him.
Early role. It didn't sound very good, though. It plays the role of Stephen Crane, tells the story of a likeable conman and rogue at the end of the yuppie 80s.
Yeah. I wouldn't have never watched that back then.
Never would I. 21st of March is Never Come Back, television crime drama miniseries.
I would never have watched that.
No, in September 1939, Desmond Thane is attracted to Anna Raven, a beautiful young woman, but soon finds himself involved in a murder mystery.
Dun, 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 dun.
I bet your mum might have watched that, though. My mum probably would have watched that as well.
It's the sort of things that my dad would never have watched that, but my mum was probably into that kind of stuff. So
yeah, my mum probably would have as well. 22nd of March is TCX.
Text, yeah.
Text. 3 ambitious young people set up a new kind of detective agency to outmaneuver criminals across Europe with support from 2 Brussels-based lawyers. Sounds thrilling.
Yeah. People in that is Spendlove, Barberini and Schwartz, which I thought sounded already like a legal team. That's the names of the actors. But is Urbano Barberini a real name?
Yeah, obviously Italian, I guess.
Sounds because it's Rob Spendlove, Urbano Barberini, and I think it was, I can't remember what the lady's name was, the Schwartz, but anyway.
Bobby Schwartz.
It could be Bobby Schwartz, but I don't remember. I never saw it ever, nor would I, and it's a stupid name, so no.
25th of March, Not With a Bang. Never heard of this. It's a short-lived British television sitcom produced by LWT in 1990. For those who listen to us not in England, well, I suppose most countries sort of thing, we had regional independent television stations. So LWT did London stuff. We had Yorkshire TV. There was Tyne Tees up north, things like that. Granada for regional, the West. Yeah. And some shows never made it out of the regional showing. So they never made it to the full, full on all the rest of the thing. So this, I never saw this. It was a dark science fiction comedy focusing on the end of the human race on Earth. It comes from the last line of T.S. Eliot's poem, Not With a Bang But a Whimper. That was The Hollow Men. Yeah, it came from a Radio 4 afternoon play. I watched some bits of the first episode. Comedy. Yeah,
the canned laughter didn't quite work. It was weird. I mean, it showed very early promise, and then it went right downhill.
Yeah. Because the intro bit made me laugh, where it was the world tomorrow instead of tomorrow's world.
Yeah, and it was the woman of tomorrow's world, wasn't it?
It was, yeah.
Well?
And she drops this beaker and it releases this thingy which just turns everyone to dust.
Yeah.
Some kind of miracle youth thing that they found.
And then cue lots of really bad jump cuts, hilarious jump cuts of people walking their dogs and turning into powder.
Yeah,
it's actually pretty bleak. And then the music on it. Did you listen back to the music?
Not particularly, I don't think. No.
So the music that was playing over that sequence at the beginning, it sounds exactly like the music from Dawn of the Dead by Goblin. It's uncanny. I think it is a homage to it. It's got to be.
Probably.
Yeah, that kind of dum 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 dum. Exactly that. It is exactly that. It's bleak. And then somebody's obviously gone, that music sounds a bit dark, Derek. He's gone, all right, then it all goes into like positive sounds. But for the first 2 or 3 minutes, it's basically Dawn of the Dead with canned laughter, and you're watching people get vaporized. It's like something went horribly wrong in the ideas of comedy at that particular moment.
I think they would go, because it reminded me of the opening episode of Red Dwarf.
Yeah.
Because in the opening episode of Red Dwarf with the drive plate and everything, when he comes back in, everyone's little piles of dust.
Yeah, ash. Yeah,
and that's what it reminded me of. That kind of similar sort of thing. Weird that it didn't still left their glasses. I always thought it just turned flesh into powder.
Just turned flesh into powder. Yeah, because she had this green liquid at the beginning, and she said, here is it's the compound that makes us age, and we've isolated it, but it's very volatile. And she goes, oops, in a really badly staged dropsy.
Yeah.
And then it turns into powder, and then the jokes, honestly, my sides were split at that point, Adrian. I couldn't stop laughing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Dawn of the Dead music really got my sides splitting.
Yeah. But the weird thing is, like I said, it didn't do her glasses, but it vaporized everyone's clothes.
Yeah, it took their clothes out. Yeah, weird. The DNA must have been in their clothes. Does that mean that was their skin? The future's weird.
The future's here now. 26th of March is Turnabout. I remember this. The BBC television daytime quiz program hosted by Rob Curlin. As soon as that theme tune came out, I was like, I recognise this.
Same Turnabout. Turnabout. Yeah, as soon as I heard it.
But the set was really cheap and really claustrophobic. Everyone was really close.
Yeah. No shit. It's BBC. They put no money in these things.
Yep. Yeah. Even the gradients on the shaded balls are crappy and bitty.
Yeah, because it was. I'm not sure of what the game was about, but there was just this grid of shaded balls on the screen.
The game basically is there's 3 balls. They turn from red to green to blue, then back to red again. You have to get lines. So there's like on a grid of 4. So you answer a question, and then you can pick any ball and change it. But you've got to make sort of like lines of 3 or 4. That's what you have to do. So, but you answer questions and then flip the balls to colours, and then you get points for answering that and for making connect 4 and stuff like that kind of thing. So that's the actual point of this game. But it's just a quiz show with balls.
Yeah, but badly shaded. Never do your radial gradients like that. Get better resolution or don't do them, you damn idiots.
Just have a colour.
That's all I'm saying. Yeah. Just, if you're going to go for 3D looking balls, make them properly. It's got that weird colour gradient. That's the same colour gradient that they used to have in Nightmare, and the graphics in that. They've got the bitty, and the resolution's not quite there yet.
It's not high enough. No,
probably Amiga. Amiga with the Gen Lock.
Probably. 26th of March is What a Mess. This was animated cartoon, based on a series of children's books. It was written by British comedy writer Frank Muir and illustrated by Joseph Wright. This is actually narrated by Frank Muir as well.
I bet it was.
Finally, 27th of March is Oh, Mr. Toad. This is weird, because this is the actual final season, the 5th season of the Wind in the Willows show. Yep. But they changed its name in the UK for some reason.
Yeah, I don't know why. Maybe they just didn't like the idea of it.
Yeah. You've never been a fan of Wind in the Willows?
No, I think it's whimsical guff. I wanted it to be When the Wind Blows in the Willows with a nuclear explosion and it triggers a terrible end for all the characters. I picture Toad of Toad Hole coughing up flies before he just puts a gun in his mouth. That's just me. But I've been watching that TV show with the Dawn of the Dead music. It's changed my perspective on everything.
Absolutely. Yeah. Oh, Ratty, what has become of you? You're just a carcass now.
Oh, Mr. Toad, your ears have fallen off and your feet have gone black.
It's okay, Badger. We'll eat them for tea. When the
chirpy.
Wind in
That's chirpy, yeah.
In the Willows, yeah, okay. There we go. At the cinema, if you wanted to go to the cinema, then on the 2nd of March, a series of you could have had a couple of outstanding war films or to do with the war. Yep. First of all is Glory.
Very good film, that.
It's a good film, yeah. Robert Gould Shaw leads the US Civil War's first all-black volunteer company, fighting prejudice from both his own Union Army and the Confederates.
Yeah, it's a really good story, that.
Denzel Washington, isn't it? Denzel Washington, Matthew Broderick, if I remember rightly.
Yes,
I haven't seen it in ages, but it is very good.
I want to say Morgan Freeman, but I don't know for sure if he's in it. I seem to remember he is, but I can't remember.
Quite possibly. And it is good, but it's one of those things, is what it is.
It is good. Film. Very thought-provoking, though, and it's really sad as well. It's got really emotional bit at the battle.
Yeah.
Oh, it's so sad. He's like tear-jerking sad. It's really crazy.
Yeah. If you didn't fancy that, then you could have gone seen Born on the 4th of July. So this was the Oliver Stone, the biography of Ron Kovich. He was paralyzed from the chest down in the Vietnam War. He becomes an anti-war and pro-human rights political activist after feeling betrayed by the country for which he fought. This is, the second in Oliver Stone's Vietnam trilogy.
It is.
There's Platoon before this. Was it Heaven and Earth? Heaven on Earth?
Yeah, that's right.
The third one. You could even put JFK probably in there as well. That was kind of, I know it's not about Vietnam, but it's about, the Vietnam War was what he postulates was the reason for it. So I think it's all to do with that 1960s, 70s politics, isn't it?
Yeah.
This is a great film. I haven't watched it in a while because it's a tough watch. It's a hard watch, sort of. It doesn't pull any punches. And Tom Cruise is brilliant in this film. Really, really good. But you have to be in the mood for it though. But it's one of Stone's best films. This was really really sort of at the height of his powers at this point as a director. Oliver Stone. Stunning stuff. Do you like this film? You a fan of,
it's an amazing film, and it's got such a beautiful soundtrack. Soundtrack's just so emotional for that film. It's unbelievable. And there's that amazing sequence where he's watching the soldiers march and he's in his wheelchair. Oh, it's just, it's one of those, you put, like you said, it is a very tough film to watch, and it's about being in the right mood, and you've just got to be prepared for it, because it takes you on a journey, that one. And it's when Oliver Stone switches it up like that, you're not going to leave without some really thought-provoking things in your head. It's a really good film. Really good.
Got the Oscar. He won a best director Oscar for it as well. He won best editing.
I can see why.
Yeah, absolutely. It had 15 wins and 26 nominations across loads of award ceremonies. So
such a good film, born on the 4th of July.
Yeah, and I think it sort of it changed the career trajectory for Tom Cruise. Hugely.
I think you're right, actually. Yeah, I think so. I think he was taken more seriously after that, and he lost his youth. His youthful brand. He
kind of tried a bit before it with things like Colour of Money and stuff, and also just before this done Rain Man, hadn't he?
Yes.
But I think this was the one. I mean, this would lead to films like Magnolia and stuff like that, where he's amazing in Magnolia and stuff like that.
Well, he was finding it hard to shake the cocktail, Top Gun, Days of Thunder version of Tom Cruise, wasn't he? And get out of that. And this film just completely yanked him out of that and put him in a completely different space. And it's an amazing portrayal in every respect. It really shows you what a good actor actually Tom Cruise is. Very underrated to this day.
I think so too. If you didn't fancy either of those war films, you could have gone seen Too Beautiful for You.
Yeah, I won't be seeing that.
No, it's a sharp love triangle is formed by a wealthy businessman. He might cut himself on that. Stars Gerard Depardieu.
It would be sharp then.
Yeah, it's French.
He was very vogue at the time, wasn't he, Mr. Depardieu?
He was, among arty circles. He was like in the sort of indie art cinema, This had probably been shown at Whitgift.
Yeah, it totally was. Must have been. I bet if you look back, it was. Yeah.
If you wonder, Whitgift was... We were quite lucky. Our school that we went to had a proper cinema at.
It did.
And it used to sort of show films sort of Wednesday to Saturday nights. The Wednesday to Friday, Saturday nights, and would show sort of bigger titles of the weekend, but in the Wednesday slots would show lots of kind of oddball sort of foreign stuff, especially for sort of early 90s. We saw numerous films there. We Tetsuo the Iron Man, didn't we? We saw that there.
Would you even put a film season on there? You and
we did, we put two on. We put two sci-fi and a horror season on through our college. Yeah, we're quite lucky in that respect for sort of opportunities we had. 9th of March, could have gone seen The Fabulous Baker Boys.
Never a film that I really had much time for.
Or as I call it, The Bridges of Fife County.
Yeah, totally that. Yeah, it's just a vehicle for Michelle Pfeiffer, wasn't it? So.
And Jeff and Beau Bridges. Yeah.
Totally.
I don't think I've ever watched it, and I don't think I ever will.
No, it's famous for the scene on the piano, isn't it? But I don't remember much about it.
Yeah. If you didn't fancy that, you could have gone and seen The War of the Roses. This was Kathleen Turner, Michael Douglas. Married couple tries everything to drive each other out of their house in a vicious divorce battle. Directed by Danny DeVito, I think, wasn't it?
It is.
I seem to remember. Ironically, I chose this to go on a date to see this. Okay. Probably not the best of choices to watch a couple go through a period of like love and then hate each other's guts to the point where they try to kill each other and throw each other out of the house.
It's a bit of an odd choice, that.
Well, I didn't realise that. I could kind of know it was going to be quite what it was.
Well, it's interesting you say that, and I bet I can guess why. It's because the trailers for it were really misleading at the time, and it was portrayed more like a comedy.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Whereas it's in fact a very black comedy, but it wasn't portrayed that way. It was actually portrayed a bit more like a throw mama from the train kind of
It looked
comedy.
Like a good date movie.
Yes. And that's how they pitched it, but it wasn't. It was two people shouting at each other for 90 minutes.
Yeah. After a while, I was like, this is got a bit dark. We came out at the end of it going, do you want to see each other? No.
Yeah, I don't want to see you again. You took me to a bad movie.
Sorry.
You did exactly what Travis Bickle does in Taxi Driver. Although he takes what's her name to a porno movie. You didn't do that.
Didn't do that.
But you did have you took her to a bad movie, so the date went badly. You could have taken her to see The Fabulous Baker Boys. She'd have loved that.
I probably would have done, but
you made the mistake.
I did.
And now it's time to pay for that mistake. You killed Bob Morton as well.
I did. I'm very sorry. I couldn't help it. I just had to. He had to be erased. We could have gone seen Fat Man and Little Boy, which is also out that day. This is weird. I've never heard of this. This film reenacts the Manhattan Project, Secret World War II project, and the first atomic bombs design, because they were called Fat Man and Little Boy, weren't they? The two bombs.
They were indeed.
And tested in Los Alamos. I've never seen this, and I think it's interesting to watch, maybe in light of the recent Oppenheimer film.
Yeah, I think it'd be quite interesting. It's
a Roland Joffe film. He did Mission, Killing Fields, and weirdly,
could be good.
Howling Mad Murdoch is Oppenheimer.
I can see him playing that quite well, Dwight Schultz. Yeah,
Dwight Schultz. Yeah, it's just, but like one of the cleverest minds of the time, sort of thing. We'll get that crazy guy out of the A-Team. Yeah, he'll be perfect for it.
Well, the thing is, he was quite varied, and he's quite good as Barclay in the Star Trek Next Gen stuff that he's in. He's quite good in that. So because he's in, I don't think he's in Deep Shit Nine, but he's in Voyager, I think, isn't he? Quite a bit.
Do you not like Deep Space Nine?
No, I like it, but it just became known in our house as Deep Shit Nine because my dad used to joke about them always being in deep shit.
In deep shit.
It's like, nothing goes right for them. They're always in deep shit. It's Deep Shit Nine.
True. Might be interesting to watch that anyway. I've never seen it.
Yeah.
If you didn't fancy that or any of those three, you could have gone and seen Dad. This is Jack Lemmon. What's his face out of Cheers? Ted Danson.
Yeah.
So this is while his mum recovers in hospital from a heart attack. John puts his busy life on hold to fly home and help his elderly dad around the house. John's son later joins them, and they all truly bond for the first and tragically final time. So this is the second film in as many months to deal with 3 generations of male family, I've noted. You wait for ages for this kind of thing to be sort of addressed. The 2 come along at once. So there was that one with Dustin Hoffman, Sean Connery, and Matthew Broderick. Family something or other, wasn't it? I can't remember.
Yeah, the one with his robbery and the robbery one.
Yeah, although this seems much more sentimental.
Yeah, it will be. It's got Jack Lemmon in it.
Yeah, going, poor old Gil.
I actually like Jack Lemmon a lot in the films he's in. He's really good in some of these 80s films that he was in.
Yeah, I don't think I've watched this though. I can't say I've ever seen this.
It doesn't ring a bell.
No, 16th of March, Weekend at Bernie's.
Yeah.
I've never watched it. I've never watched this. I've never fancied it. It's just never
that
really...
That surprises me because I figured it'd be right up your street, that.
No, it's never... I think it just came out at a time when I was just not into this sort of thing.
That's
and I
crazy.
Just never gone back to it. And I think it'd be like watching it now without any kind of ties. I think it might be
It's dated pretty badly.
That's what I mean, yeah.
I mean, it's up there with License to Drive, and there's a few other films around that time, gross out comedies as such as they are. It's the precursor to a lot of the modern sort of gross out comedies that we get. So
American Pie?
American Pie, yeah. There's that kind of vibe to it. It's got a young cast, funny situations and stuff, and it is quite funny in places, but like Weird Science, you watch it now and you're like, it's not.
For those who don't know, what the plot is, they're 2 guys and they go to stay with this older guy and he dies, but they have to pretend that he's not dead. Is that right?
Yeah, essentially that. I can't really ins and outs. I can't remember if he's got some money for them or there's some reason they have to pretend that he's alive for the whole weekend.
Yeah.
Because if he dies, there's something that happens. So they pretend that he's alive and they put him on boats and drive around with him in a car and sort of that sort of stuff. And it's that kind of stuff, but obviously, there's more to it than that. But it's just, these funny moments where there's a dead body that they're carrying around. I'm not sure how funny that is now, I'll say it out loud, but it seemed funny at the time.
Yeah, obviously did to people because thinking, well, it's one of those films because there was a sequel, wasn't there? Weekend at Bernie's 2. How do you make a sequel to a situation like that? I don't know.
I'm not sure how it works, but it might be worth going back to if you fancy a bit of a 80s blast because they're very 80s, those films. Very 80s. So.
Was it Anthony? Who was it in it? Was it one of the Brat Pack lot?
Without clicking on it, which I'm doing right now, I couldn't tell you because off the top of my head, but it's Ted Kotcheff directed it. Now there's an interesting thing. I didn't realise that.
He did. First Blood,
Andrew McCarthy. Jonathan Silverman. Yeah. Few famous faces in there. But yeah, if you like it, and obviously it's the guy who's just a dead body all the way through, which is quite funny in its own way. So.
23rd of March, that was the only film on 16th of March. 23rd of March, there was Rude Awakening. Never heard of it, but in the 1960s, 2 hippies go off into the jungle to evade the FBI. When they come back to New York in the 80s, their fellow hippie friends have become rich yuppies. This starred Cheech Marin.
Yeah, not my cup of tea at all.
No. Finally, to end the month, on the 26th of March, there was Tango and Cash.
It was.
In order to do my research fully, I watched this today.
And
good Lord, stupid film. It's so stupid. I can't. It is ultimate end of the 80s, beginning of the 90s. Ridiculous preposterousness with Stallone, and it's basically Kurt Russell is the sort of freewheeling cop who doesn't do things by the book, and he's like, hey, and quick whip and everything like that.
Right. So he's the Lethal Weapon version of
yes, and then you've got Sylvester Stallone, who's wears very smart ties, has very smart short hair, and he's very very uptight and things like that, and does things always by the book, stuff like that. Essentially, they're trailing this Jack Palance, who is, pretty much playing the same guy same crime boss he does in Batman. You, Jack, my number one guy, him.
Is made of pure ham.
Yeah, it's absolutely. Yeah, he's full on. Yeah, he's full on ham on. And what he does is he frames them for killing this FBI guy, and they get sent to prison, and they take a plea for 18 months in this like minimum security, just thing like that. But on the way there, which you don't see in the film, they just turn up at a maximum security prison where they're just that they have to survive in this maximum security prison, and no one knows where they are. But then again, you're thinking, oh, so it's lockup. Like, no, it's not actually lockup. It's more stupidly tongue-in-cheek than that. And they're only in there for a short time, and they have to make the most stupidly easy escape ever by abseiling, or what, I don't know what you call it actually, by throwing belts over electric wires between pylons and
what do you call it? Like zip line.
Zip lining out, yeah. That's how they get out. Then they have to sort of prove their innocence by going up against it. So they have Kurt Russell knows this guy, and he builds this armored SUV, which they then use to sort of invade the bad guy's mine. And there's just explosions and shit. There's a line at the beginning where Sylvester Stallone sort of shoots this truck and it stops, and the two guys fly out at the beginning. And this guy, the cop, is like, "What are you doing?" Blah, blah, blah. And he goes, he thinks he's Rambo, and Stallone turns around and goes, "Rambo's a pussy." We've reached that stage of the 90s, 80s, 90s action stage where the self-referential nightmare. And as you've rightly pointed out, the head-to-hair height ratio is off the chart.
It's crazy. Crazy. And that was just in the stills that I looked at.
Yeah, you should see it in film. And then it ends with a picture. It ends because they do this all the way through. They're sort of promising to do this high five, and they never do it. But then when they blow everything up at the end, they do a high five. And then there's this picture. The end credits sequence is just them over this sort of newspaper clipping, which I've taken a shot of here. And then they're just surrounded by these cops. It's just stupid. Everything about this film is ridiculous. But again, I do remember going to the cinema to see it.
Okay.
Because I went to the cinema to see everything back then. But it's not very good. It really isn't. And,
no.
Tango and Cash. I'd want it to sort of, I'd always, it's one of those films go, oh, maybe I should watch that again. I did, and I wish I hadn't. So there you go. Do you remember anything about it? Have you watched it recently? Have you?
No, I haven't watched this one recently. I was never a fan of it. I remember vague things about it. I remember Kurt Russell being Kurt Russell in it, and a very vague memories of a truck being blown up or something in it. But other than that, I don't remember much else about it.
No, it's got Terry Hatcher in it.
Ah, yes, now I remember.
just that say. Yeah. There's a humorous moment where she's giving Kurt Russell a massage, and Stallone thinks she's doing other things. No, humorous.
Oh, trouble. The trouble.
Yeah. There we go. That was it. That was your silver screen. That was your TV screen and the cinema stuff for March 1990. We're going to go away, take a quick break. We'll come back. We've still got 4 more games to get through, Graham. 4 more games. So let's take that break, and we'll be back in a moment. All right, we're back. 4 games. Let's do this. Let's clear them out. Graham, tell us all about Tintin on the Moon.
Tintin, Hergé's Adventures of Tintin. Okay, this was £9.99. There was the disc and a tape version of this, believe it or not, and it's multi-load. That's never a good thing. Never good. 64%. Okay.
It's that range again.
It's in the zone, isn't it? So this was published by Infogrames, and it was re-released under Biteback. So I don't know who the original one was actually by. I've got the instructions here, so I could probably see that. I'm not 100% sure. It's the Infogrames, and I'm not sure who coded the original one. But anyway, the names that I have attributed this are is the people who did it also did Hercules, Slayer of the Damned, and Cosmic Pirate. So whether that's the re-releases or whether that's who did this, I don't know. But the music is definitely by Jerome Tell, and the box art is definitely by Hergé, because he's the one that did all the Tintin stuff, isn't he?
He did.
So for those not so familiar with the world of Tintin, The Adventures of Tintin is a series of 24 comic albums. I thought there was more than that, but 24 comic albums created by Belgian cartoonist Georges Remy, who wrote under the pen name Hergé. The series was one of the most popular European comics of the 20th century. By 2007, a century after Hergé's birth in 1907, Tintin had been published in more than 70 languages with sales of more than 200 million copies, and had been adapted for radio, television, theatre, and film. Wow. And indeed, later down the line, I think there's a Spielberg film of Tintin, I believe.
Yeah, CG one, isn't there? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Crazy good as well. Crazy good, the CG in that. So this then, I'll read you the instructions. The instructions are actually quite vague for this.
I'll say.
So
It says Tintin on the Moon. Now, bear in mind that Tintin on the Moon is one of those 24 books. Specifically, there's a story all about this.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, it says, the first rocket to the moon is about to be launched from the Atomic Research Centre at Sprodge in Sildavia. Okay. On board are Tintin, Captain Haddock, and Professor Calculus, 3 very important characters in the Tintin universe. The army of technicians make their final checks. The rocket is all set for takeoff. Sirens and loudspeakers blare out the signal to evacuate the launch area. The gantry ramps fall slowly aside. Time, 1:29 a.m. The countdown is underway. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, ignition. In an explosion of flame and smoke, the mighty spaceship lifts off the pad, heading for Earth orbit. Okay, I hope you know what to do, because that's that's setting the scene for you.
No idea.
No, absolutely not. So I'll go into that. I'll just explain the opening sequence and then a little bit about each sort of level, because it's a game of 3 stages, essentially, or kind of 2, really.
Yeah.
So there's an opening sequence such as, and it's actually quite nicely presented, this opening sequence. So you get to see the rocket lift off. It takes off into space, and there's a little bit of animation, and it does set the scene, and it looks kind of Tintin-y. So at this point, the graphics, okay. The music, well, it's okay, but it does not suit this game in the slightest.
Nope.
Not a single bit. The graphics look nice as well. It's, like I said, good presentation. And then you'll start the game after this. It goes to kind of a holding screen, and you'll start the game, and you'll end up this is a multi-load game. And so it will load in level 1, which is what is called the rocket stage. Okay, now in the instructions for the rocket stage, it says, and I quote, "Now you take over the controls of the rocket. It's your job to take our friends to the moon. You'll have to avoid the meteorites and catch the yellow and red spheres on your way. The yellow spheres stock you up with energy. You'll have to catch 8 red spheres to go to the next stage." Okay, pretty straightforward what you have to do.
Yeah.
So you've got to fly a rocket, essentially. Avoid the asteroids and meteors and collect the yellow and red blobs, like I said, and get 8, and then you'll go to the next stage, which is the inside the rocket part. Now, for the rocket stage, the graphics are okay on it. They're quite simple. You control the rocket with a joystick, and you must navigate around with some meteors that fly towards you at different speeds. These all start in the kind of center of the screen and zoom towards you, and you zip and fly about. So it's kind of a quasi attempt at 3D into the screen kind of view. And you fly your spaceship about seemingly at breakneck speeds. Everyone in there's got to be vomiting like crazy if you're flying around like that.
Broken bones throughout their body. And
absolutely.
Strokes and died.
Defying any kind of physics that we know of. But anyway, so you zip about, and the idea is you dodge the dodge the meteors, collect the tokens, the spheres, and you get enough to get to the next stage. And that's kind of it. It's just kind of a dodge the rocks thing. It's not very exciting. Graphically, it's okay. It's just not very exciting. And it's actually really easy, like stupidly easy to do, because you can't shoot at anything. You just have to move out the way of things. So you're moving out the way. It's like a nice star effect, I guess. But you're just flying, moving the rocket ship out the way, and it had a vibe of kind of a Rocket Ranger vibe when you're playing Rocket Ranger and you're shooting at the giant airship, only without the airship in it. So you just it controls how you control Rocket Ranger actually in a similar way, but not very exciting though. So I guess, like I said, simple graphics. They look okay. They kind of look what they're meant to be, but it doesn't really get up either, because this level repeats. So after you finish the next bit, you'll come back to this one, and they up the difficulty by throwing more rocks at you. But this is just more and more and more of the same thing. Yep. So I've explained level 1, level 3, level 5, I think, because you play this in between the other ones. So assuming that you get past that, and you will, because it's easy, you'll get to what they call the rocket stage. Now, in the instructions, in the rockets, it's called, your job is to guide Tintin through the various rooms in the rocket. You'll have to disarm the bombs, put out fires, free his companions, and catch that dastardly Colonel Boris, whoever that might be, because there's been no mention of him whatsoever, or for what reason, or why he's in the rocket.
No. Why do you let him in? It's the one thing we didn't want to happen.
There are 4 conditions which have to be fulfilled to go over to the next stage. So you've got to basically put out the fires, defuse some bombs, rescue the prisoners, or at least run over them, and then capture the Colonel. That's the 4 things you have to do. And if you do those things before the time runs out, then you'll get to the next stage, which is ironically back into space and flying the rocket again. And so it goes on like that. So this stage then, inside the rocket, the look and feel is a bit more classic platform, but it's a flick screen kind of look and feel to it, more aligned to the Dan Dare style approach of maybe, or maybe that Thunderbirds game, but without the adventure. Here you've got to run around, find and rescue your friends, also whilst performing simple tasks like picking up a fire extinguisher, putting out fires, defusing bombs, which just means running over them. The time is tight, but as long as you don't really deviate and just stop running, and you'll be through this very quickly. You can also switch the gravity off with F1, which sees you float about.
which you need to use once on one level to get to a bomb that is on a platform that doesn't have a ladder. So all the screens are essentially platforms and ladders with objects dotted about. In one of the screens, you will find the commander whom you must subdue after you've done everything else to move to the next stage. Controls are with the joystick to run around and climb ladders, fire to use the fire extinguisher once you picked it up, F1 to use the anti-gravity. Again, the levels are very small, probably about 10 to 15 screens, tops, maybe even less than that, might be 8. You're against the clock, and generally that will be your undoing. If there's a way you're going to fail this game, it'll be because you run out of time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Or if you don't defuse the bombs on time, it's game over. Or if you don't subdue the commander in time, it's game over. Or if you run out of energy, it's game over. And when it's game over, I mean game over, as in you're back to level 1, back to stage 1, which is really depressing in this.
Yep.
Now, the graphics are good. The backgrounds look suitably Rocket-like internally. They don't look bad. With ladders and computer banks atop platforms and rooms, there's a nice look to that. The sprites and most of the others do look like the Tintin characters. They kind of look like who they're meant to be, which is okay. The animations are a bit hit and miss, maybe. Generally, movement's okay, but your extinguisher use is kind of jerky and the flame effects and animations are a bit janky. So they've obviously thought about the animation of the characters, but nothing else, really, or any of the game, in fact. And the main issue, again, for this particular part is it's just ridiculously easy. I mean, I was through that first stage and through this stage in a matter of minutes. It really didn't take me very long. The lack of characterization and interaction is a massive problem in this. Remember, this is a Tintin game, which is fundamentally about the interplay between Tintin and his dog, Snowy, and Captain Haddock, or whatever his name is, and Professor whatever he's called. And there's interplay. They have conversations, and there's the Thompson twins in there, and there's some famous characters in this particular thing. So you would think that in a game like this, for this level, you would make it more like the first Dan Dare game, where you've got an objective and things to do, and you can walk around and talk to the other characters because they might have hints and things you need to do, and that would be a more compelling experience. It would be more like the Tintin books if it did that. What Tintin never does is just run around and complete everything in 2 minutes. The book would be 2 pages long, wouldn't it? Tintin launches a rocket, he avoids the meteors, next page, he's found everybody, next page, bombs diffused, captured Colonel, whatever his name was, end. Like, well, it's a 3-page book. It doesn't feel like a book. It feels more like a little pamphlet, really, that.
Yeah.
So they've missed out almost everything that makes this game Tintin, including the story, which seems really strange to do, because Tintin on the Moon is an actual story. There's a story to that book, which they could have made into an adventure game real easy. They've got all the components there. This is what I couldn't understand. So there's no more to this. There is apparently, and I never saw this, mind, but there's apparently a stage where you land the rocket. Now, I never got to that stage. I completed this entire game, never got to that stage, and I just came up with a congratulations, you've done it, with the graphic of Tintin. So I don't know where the rocket landing stage happens or whether it did it. I just didn't get it. Just went through the game. I went, meteors, inside ship, 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 done. So I don't know if that might be a problem with the cracked version that we've got, in that maybe they've missed a bit off or something like that. It could easily be something daft like that. But anyway, that was the version I had. But the main problem is the lack of characterization and the lack of interaction. You don't interact with any characters, including Snowy, really, which is kind of his dog. It's key. You need to talk to the other characters because they've all got, they could all add interesting things to do. Even Rupert the Bear game managed that, didn't it? Even at its most basic, this could have been a Rupert the Bear type idea.
Yeah.
So the spaceship level lacks any excitement or adventure, and the game lacks any adventure in a Tintin book. In a Tintin game. Well, I'm not a huge fan of Tintin. I had a soft spot for the books when I was younger. I have to say, I quite liked getting them out of the library. They were quite expensive back then, but they were kind of these big, bold, really nicely drawn, really nicely conceived books, and they all had really quite nice stories and characters, and I quite liked that about them. They were probably some of the first proper comic books of that type, comic panel stories that I ever really, really read and enjoyed back when I was younger. So to see it done like this was a bit disappointing. It's not like the graphics aren't there, because the graphics are okay and it looks Tintin-ish, and they've got that part right, but it's just missing any game. There's no game here. There's no adventure game. There's nothing really, really challenging. What a shame. What a tragic shame. And then to top it all off, Tintin does have a music score, but it doesn't need to be some kind of funked out electro Euro dance. I just think it's a bit of a missed opportunity where they could have. I mean, maybe Tintin had a currency at this point with gamers. I don't know. It just feels like it's a bit of a missed opportunity to make something of what is a massive license. Again, now I'm not saying they've done a big dump on it like we've seen with many licensed games. It's not that bad, but it's just not very exciting and it's not very adventurous. And so when you complete the stages, there's no brouhaha. When you finish the game, it's like, well done, you finished it, great. It's just, and that kind of sums up how they've approached this game. They've got all the basic characters and all the graphics and all the things together, and they've gone, what can we do with it? I don't know. And it's just a shame. All they needed to have done is read the book. There's plenty of adventures in Tintin stories. So my overall feeling for this was nice looking presentation. Music didn't suit it. boring stage 1, no adventure in stage 2, very repetitive. If they'd have just done it like an adventure game and Dan Dare, this would have been quite the interesting game to look at, or Batman even. But because it doesn't have any of those things, it lacks the Tintin-ness that's required in a Tintin game. So no, not for me. No, rusty Tintin. What about you?
I was never a fan of Tintin. So so I had no nostalgia for this. And maybe that was a good thing because I've written like what you've written, it's pretty thin entertainment here. Pretty thin. It's wafer thin. It's a wafer thin game.
It is wafer
It's
thin.
annoying too. And unlike you, I found the first section to be quite frustrating because I wanted the controls to be inverted.
Yeah. You like you're.
I like inverted, so it's like I'm controlling a spaceship. So for me, pushing up should move it down, and I feel like I'm playing a flight stick. And so I had to fight that all the time. So when one of the asteroids was going up, I was like, right, I'll pull down to go get it and go downwards. So I was fighting that all the time. I managed to get through to the sections, but I died quite a few times because you have to constantly collect those yellow ones, and I was just flying in the wrong bloody direction all the time. Which is more, I'd say that's me, but it just made it tougher, which is whatever. The second section, it's just boring. It's just dull. I mean, it's a few screens, you wander about, you find a fire extinguisher, you wake some people up, you go. I completed it just by chance because the guy, the colonel, what's his face, just appeared, and I just went, press fire with the thing in it, and it suddenly just threw me back into space. I was like, oh, okay. And then I failed because I couldn't work the controls again. I was like, oh, God's sake. But I also didn't. The graphics, some of the graphics are good. I think my main complaint with the graphics is that Tintin doesn't look like Tintin. It should have a blue top on.
Yeah, I suppose it's Tintin shaped, but that's about it.
I thought he was too big and well grown to be Tintin.
Looks like Tintin. I don't know. I thought he looked like it, but
I don't know. I just thought the main sprite was just a bit too chunky and well grown, sort of thing for Tintin. He just needs to be. He's a bit thinner. I thought it's just a bit smaller. I don't know. What do you do? Wander about, like I said, put out fires and fog the evil do. The visuals, like you said, the other visuals, they're okay. They're fine, I guess, in the space section. But the gameplay and stuff, there's nothing there. It's just, I just found it really thin. It's barely there as a game. There should be more to do than this in this kind of game in 1990. And I think you're right. If they'd approached this like the first Dan Dare game or the Batman game, or made a bit of an adventure of it, or made, characters that you had to find stuff and do stuff and following people around and whatever, and actually follow the book, like you said, there'd have been a better thing here. 64%, nah, not for me. There's not 2/3 of a game here.
No, it's not that good.
I thought it was pretty poor. I'd have put this in the 40s, but it's just a bit bland and a bit empty, vacuous. I know it's set in space, but you don't have to do it literally. So there you go, Tintin on the moon, and you're never on the moon.
No, that's what I mean. You're meant to land on the moon. At a certain point, there's a moon landing sequence because it's described in the manual.
It is described in the manual, but I've looked through all the screenshots. If you look on Moby Games, there's screenshots for all the versions. There's screenshots from flying in space and the platform bit. There's not one screenshot from landing on the moon.
I wonder if it's in it then, because it is very vague in the description. It says, to land, you'll have to brake the speed by regulating the auxiliary engine. This last test will allow you to convert the remaining energy into score.
Yeah, I don't know.
That's it.
Back into the Astrofield, there are 5 stages. For the final level, it does say you've got to land it in the Zapped review, but
I didn't see it, and I went through I went through the whole thing. I got the completion screen, so
there'd be a screenshot somewhere of it. No, empty game. Let's move on. We still have 3 games to go, and our next one is the Champ. So you wanna be a boxer? Or champ, wake up, champ, wake up. That's what this is. This was £9.99. The C64 is not short of boxing games, Graham. It is not short of them. But is it time that Byron McGuigan's boxing was dethroned as the king of them all? Well, let's play the Champ and find out. This was published by Lionel, and designed originally by Marcus Grimmer for the Amiga, I think.
Okay.
The C64 conversion is by Pantheon Software with Andrew Bowen, because they did the conversion of Speedball with Andrew Bowen doing the coding. He did Speedball. And Chris Edwards doing the visuals. He didn't do Speedball. And the music on this is by Martin Walker.
Okay.
The music. Now, I'm just going to say, I don't know where the music is in this game because I never heard any. Maybe you did. Maybe you got some. I didn't. There's music on Lemon, so you can listen to it. It's a version of the Rocky theme. Not. Maybe it's on the loader or something. I don't know.
Okay.
It's not a great version of the Rocky theme, though. Maybe best it wasn't anywhere in the game. I'll also say that it's just one of the games that seems to have been forgotten. I mean, it just trying to find any information on this was like, good lord. I couldn't find a manual or anything. I could find some instructions for the Amiga version, but trying to find anything on this, nothing. So when the game loads, we get some options. We can have this, like the title screen is quite nice. There's like a belt at the top saying the champ, and there's a sort of statue on the left, and it's all done this kind of bronzed sort of look, sort of brown and yellowy. We can have a 1 or 2 player game. We can turn the training on or off. We can show the high scores, the world ranking. We can even format a disc. We can do some sparring, or we can start a game. 2-player mode just allows us to have a fight with another person, and you need to have the training on to allow you to progress in the world ranking. So I don't know why you want to turn that off. It's kind of weird. You need to have it on. Sparring puts us in the ring for 1 round so we can learn the moves, and start game gets things going, gets the main game going. So the first thing you do, you press start game, you got to pick a boxer. So you can pick an existing boxer, one of the ones that are already on the disc, or you can enter your own name. So if you select an existing boxer, this is done from a confusing set of options. I was like, am I choosing one? I picked a name, and then it went format, go to the disc. And I'm like, load it from the. I'm like, what am I doing? I just kept pressing fire, and eventually it wasn't particularly clear the way these options were laid out. So it allows us to start as a boxer, which I think they're in the rankings already. If you make your own boxer, it means you are starting from the very beginning, and that means fighting in some back alley, but in full boxing shorts. Seems weird. It just seems weird. It's a bit weird, that.
It is weird.
So if you did choose an existing boxer, because this kind of starts out in 2 different ways. If you start on your own, you've got to work from the bottom. If you chose an existing boxer, the first thing you do is you go to the training, because you've been accepted. You are a boxer in the ranks. If you're not a boxer, you have to kind of work your way in and get noticed by winning some fights. So you do the training first if you've picked an existing boxer. There are 3 parts to this, 3 training sessions. The first is skipping. You tap the fire to start, and you'll start skipping. You press up to jump over the rope, and the longer you can do that for, the more something goes, I don't know, some of your stats go up, I guess. The second is the heavy bag, where your trainer who's in front of you will do a series of punches, and then you must do the same moves. They get more complex as it goes along, so kind of like a Simon Says type thing. And then finally, the punch bag, where you just have to waggle, supposedly in time, but you just get faster and faster to it as many times as you can in the time limit. So it's that fast punch bag thing. Now, supposedly there are stats for the boxer, such as morale and condition. I couldn't see them, and I couldn't see them making much impact in the fights. Supposedly, if your morale is low, you're less likely to come back and blah, 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 this, but whatever. However, assuming you have chosen to make your own boxer, there's no training. So the first thing that happens here, we get to get the fight loading in, and the presentation is quite nice. We kind of get these 2 little sort of box outs with kind of different boxer in each one and who we're going to fight. They're always the same, but it's a nice little bit as it loads in. And so we get, like I said, we get the fight, and we're fighting in this back alley against someone else. No idea who. There's no names. You just fight. You're just in a back alley having a fight. It's very bizarre. You start you start on the left of the screen in blue shorts and gloves, and your opponent is on the right and he's got white shorts and gloves. The controls here are where my problems with the game started to grow. Okay, so it's like, okay, so there's plenty of controls, there's plenty of things to do. So with the fire button not pressed, so if you're facing to the right, which you are when you start, up makes you dance. That sort of bounce up and down a little bit. Yeah. Top right makes you switch positions if you're close in with the other fighter. Right moves you to the right. Down right defends your head. Down defends your chest, and down and back defends your stomach. Okay, left moves you to left, top left does nothing. Down right to defend your head. I don't get it. It should be up. It should just be up. It's intuitive for it just be up. With no buttons pressed, you press up raises your gloves. I don't, and down makes to defend your body. It's just a basic, isn't it? It's intuitive. That's intuitive. This is not. So anyway, with the fire button pressed, up is a clinch, so you can clinch on some of them. Top right, so the fighting moves are not too bad. Top right is a straight right. Right is a right hand to the stomach. Down right is a right hook, but down is a killer punch, and I'll come to the issues with that in a moment. Down left is a left hook, left is a left to the stomach, and top left is a straight left to the face. That works, that's okay, no problem with those. When you are clinched up, if you press up, it's a punch, left is defend, and down is release the clinch. They're not particularly intuitive. They're a bit all over the place. The attacking ones are not so bad, but it's that guard thing. I didn't like it. But there's a more serious issue, and I found this in every fight I had. So at the top of the fight screen, you have a health bar, and under this is your point tally. There's no other kind of UI on the screen apart from your points and the health bar at the top. Your health bar depletes as you take punches, and your points tally will go up as you land punches. The fights themselves are over 9 rounds, and should it go that far, then whoever has the most points wins. However, if you or your opponent are knocked down 3 times over the course of the fight, then that is game over as well.
Okay.
That's not within a round, but over a fight. That's stupid. So it doesn't matter how much health you've got. If you get knocked down maybe at the beginning, first round, and then you get knocked down again the second, but you go all the way through to the 9th and you have full health, you get knocked down again, game over. You're done.
That's right.
That's stupid. That's ridiculous. Because the problem is the killer punch will knock you down immediately, and it can just come out of nowhere. And if you might be landing a load of blows, they just do. The opponent, the computer, just does one killer punch and you're down. You're like, I was hammering him. I was battering him around the head. How's he done this? And there's nothing you can do to block it. If you've got your gloves up, you can block it. But remember, you want to be punching as well, so it can come while you're punching, and it just seems to do it time and time again, which is battering them, and then out of nowhere. They land a killer blow, and I'd be down on my knees. There was points where I had them at, I'd knocked them down twice. I'm like, okay. And the only way you can knock someone down, I found, is to actually do this killer blow. So you have to keep doing that. And I'd knock them down, and then they just 3-timed me. Went boff, boff, boff. And I was like, oh, right, okay. And they'd do that just again and again, and it's game over. And I do mean, like Hergé's Adventure Tintin, and I do mean game over. You are back to the start, back to the title screen, have to enter your name and start all over again. There's no save or anything like that. It's I tried being patient, tried keeping my guard up. Like I said, one time I knocked him down twice, beating him on points by a couple of hundred. And then he just landed, like I said, 3 killer blows over 3 rounds, and I was out. Even though my health was still nearly full on that third blow. It's ridiculous. It's a fundamentally stupid design decision because of the nature of the way that punch can happen. And you're just out of the blue, you're done. Then to add insult to injury, to punish you by ending the game, sending you back to the title screen, made me just wish I was playing Barry McGuigan's boxing again. I was like, just give me Barry McGuigan. That's way better than this. They didn't have to quit the game on you. You lose the fight. Okay, fair enough. But then put you in another fight. Don't make you go through the rigmarole of having to set yourself up again and everything. I don't know. So it's close because some of the offensive moves are okay. There's some nice presentation to this. The visuals on the fighters and the backgrounds are good. There's the alley is quite nicely drawn. The gym is nicely drawn when you're doing your training. It's all well and good. The sprites are good. The animations are pretty decent and everything like that. The training parts are okay, if a little underwhelming. They could have been a bit better. But the boxing itself is just undercut with a pun by that move. Yeah. There was, like I said, there was one point I was punching the hell out of him in the face. He just did that move and I was knocked down. And also as well, I noticed that you could be hammering them, and at the one point, the health just wouldn't go down any further, no matter how much more I punched him. You have to do that move. I don't know. I just it just took all the fun out of this game. This could have been a decent. I don't know why that's in there. Like in Baron McGuigan's, you work them until you get their health down, and then you knock them out with any punch. Yeah, I don't get it, because someone taking that many blows to the head shouldn't be able to swing a killer blow out of nowhere and take you out. No. It felt like an idea that they had, if you do this one killer punch at the right time, it just wasn't implemented properly. So, like I said, there's some nice visuals in this, nice presentation around the edges, but I found that the fights were just an exercise in frustration that just kept sending me back. Even when I played as an existing boxer, and I had someone cornered in the corner of the ring, they just went down. I was like, oh, okay. And it was game over again, and you're back to the beginning, you're back to the title screen, you've got to pick it all over again. Very annoying. It just kills the game. It just killed it. Just killed it dead for me. It pissed me off, and I turned it off. So I didn't enjoy this. There could have been, I think there is a decent boxing game in here. I think there is an actual good idea, and there's some nice parts to it, but that instant game over, I was like, I'm having none of this. And so, it just, it wasn't a knockout. It was just poor. I don't get it. It got 74%, and maybe in 2 players a bit of a laugh if you can pull that move off, like the head chop in Barbarian. But the head chopping Barbarian, you can see it coming and duck or put your sword up and block. This, you can't see it coming. So no, it just annoyed me. So yeah, what did you think?
Same, really. Graphics look nice. The backgrounds were a bit over busy at the start with the
UI at the top almost impossible to see, but the boxes look kind of okay, and the movements are okay, and it kind of, I like the thematic. Some of the moves looked a bit crappy when you did them, but it was passable enough. You could my thought was, if this gets to when I was starting off, if this gets to a boxing ring, this might be okay if there's more to it, if it's got the right kind of progression and the right vibe. Problem was it doesn't. So you could sort of you go through that motion, the part in the training in the gym, the graphics were okay there, the animations were quite good. Bit of a memory game at times and stuff, and okay, I get it, but and it sort of worked. It kind of worked in service to what he was aiming to do. But the boxing ring section looked okay. A bit over busy again, but thought I'd gone into the game, but just not the thought in the right places. So it didn't have enough boxing in it, boxing around the edges. It was just kind of, the fights were a bit lame anyway, but it just needed a bit more thought. It needed more Barry McGuigan in it. Yeah. It just needed a bit more of that. It has almost the right things in the right places, just not quite there. It's a little bit underbaked. And so I enjoyed the way it looked. I enjoyed some of the games, but it just felt pointless when you just get knocked back to the start. And I thought, I don't know. I'm still going back to Barry McGuigan. It's not a terrible boxing game. It's not terrible. It's just not a very good boxing game when you've got other boxing games like Barry McGuigan's that just do this kind of thing better. I still say that that one stands out. There was that one that was like the 3D perspective, the first person one.
Oh, the Accolade one.
Yeah, they're the standout boxing games. This one, I don't know. It just feels it's just not quite there. It's nearly there. If they'd have just maybe taken out the entire section in the street anyway, and just focus on getting better in the ring like it does in Barry McGuigan's, and just having some compelling, fun boxer names like it does in Barry McGuigan's, and simplifying the moves and the construction of those so that you can actually have a good boxing match like Barry McGuigan's did. This was a better looking. If this had been like Barry McGuigan's with these graphics, I think it would have had something quite interesting. Yeah. But as it stands, it's just a bit of an expensive punch-out game and not that great at that. And like you said, the special move thing's just stupid. So, no, I enjoyed what I could. But I still would defer back to other games of this type that are better. So
yeah, absolutely. There you go. Certainly not the champ in our eyes of the boxing genre. Still 2 games left. Let's move on to the next one. Graham, well, it's time to you to tell us all about what it's like to be inside Steel Thunder.
Steel Thunder. The things they come up with for these bloody things.
Blue
all
Magnum.
Right. So it's been a simulator heavy, hasn't it, this time around? So I'm not doing formation flying now. Now I'm in tanks. It's a tank sim.
Sorry about that.
So this was $9.99 according to the price schedule. 70% though. It's published by Accolade. This time the design was by Tom Lowry. The producer was Sam Nelson, and the graphics are by Roseanne Mitchell and Tom Lowry. So Tom Lowry again. The musician here was Ed Bogus. He's done loads of this kind of stuff, hasn't he?
Yes.
So tank sim, okay. The idea here really, pick a tank, arm it, and then head into the field of battle and complete missions and stuff by piloting the tank and doing tank stuff. Tanks. Exciting, that. According to the blurb, it says, they're coming. 5, 8, 10 miles away, a rumble echoes through the green hills of central Germany. At first, it sounds like a thunderclap, a summer storm rolling down from the eastern mountains. But now, there's a siren squawking overhead and a grim, intense look on the general's face as he paces the tarmac. As you head for the tanks, the booming moves closer. This time, there's no mistaking the sound of heavy artillery. The moment the world has feared for decades has finally arrived. They're coming. You settle into the commander's seat atop your sleek M1A1 Abrams tank, I guess. Master power on, engine power on, gun sight on. Your 4-man crew moves effortlessly through the startup sequence like this was just another NATO practice maneuver. 60 tons of steel comes alive with a low hum, as smooth and quiet as your grandma's old tail-fin Cadillac. Glowing control panels put $2 million worth of the world's most sophisticated technology at your fingertips. You check the map again. Looks like half of Moscow showing up for this picnic. The satellite shot shows dozens of Soviet T-80s, T-62s, some BTR-70 infantry carriers, and a whole menagerie of Zoo anti-aircraft guns, all defending the medium-range nuclear missile site you're assigned to knock out. No problem. Even before you head out for the hills, the outcome has already been decided. You're a crack crew of skilled tankers. Be careful how you say that. Running the most awesome military vehicle in history. Faster, more powerful than anything the other side has ever dreamed of. A devastating war machine that rolls out of the west like steel thunder. Dum 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 dum. Tank simulators. Will they ever win? Anyway, so you get the title screen. It's got some information about tanks on it. Interesting that. It'll go through the sort of that with a lot of loading. There's a bit of loading going on in this game. It brings tears to your eye, the loading in this.
Oh, God.
And you can control, some of this. So you get sort of the national anthem playing for the US. Very patriotic looking at all these tanks. You're like, yes, that's the Steel Thunder Rhino and love. Yes. I even stood up and saluted. I thought, this is just great. Then you get like a pop quiz. I guess it's the anti-piracy thing, isn't it? So in which tank would you find one of the following? I was like, oh, no, thankfully it had been cracked. It zipped off the screen really fast, and then you get to control a tank, really. But first, you've got to go through a series of slowing things and some things to choose and some things you need to decide. So before you can get into battle and choose the kind of thing you're going to do, or be given your mission, should I say, you've got to, first of all, know about the tanks, which you do. Then the slowing begins. And the slowing is quite intense in this one.
Yes, it is.
Then you have to pick a name, and then you can view the personnel that you will be in the tank with, and you can see their personnel profiles. Again, I feel like I'm getting an insight into people I know nothing about, nor do I care, really. I don't. They could be the worst people at gunners in the world. What would it matter to me? I'm definitely going to be the worst commander of this tank they've ever encountered. There's no doubt about that.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, you update the roster with your name, and then more slowing begins. You've got some decent graphics here, I suppose. If the first one, you've got like what looked to me like, and I could be wrong, and I'll be corrected, it looked to me like a soldier with a gun standing in front of an enormous baguette.
Yeah, it did.
So he was looking at eyeing up this massive baguette like, that is one big sandwich. So there's that.
William Shatner would have loved that sandwich.
He would. It does look like a big old baguette, that. And then the next one is your kind of commander general person sat at his desk, broad shoulders, military spec uniform, sat in the command center, sort of, at the desk with the pen and the pointing of the finger and stuff.
Yeah.
And you've got to identify yourself. So you give yourself a name. Of course I chose Calibos. Of course I did. Commander Calibos in the house, y'all. Then you choose the roster and he disappears. You get to see the roster. And the graphics here they're all right. They're it's meant to be a clipboard, and you're meant to be sort of signing with the world's smallest pen, I think. It looks like the kind of pencil you nick from Argos back in the 90s. Yeah. So anyway, so you're filling in this form essentially, and you choose your roster. Then you can view your missions and your maps. So you get to choose your vehicle at this point as well. So you've got a series of tanks to choose from. You're probably going to want to choose the M1A1 Abrams tank. That's the main one. But there are others you can choose, the M3. And they do actually have different controls and dashboards in them. The controls are the same, but the look and feel of them is different, marginally, but it is different. And they have different weapons and tactics and things like that. So once you've chosen the tank, and by the way, I went through the quick start guide for this, so I chose the options I chose. So I chose the M1A1. Then you get to choose this kind of spec of the tank, so you can choose then the ordnance. It tells you a bit of information about a tank, and you choose the ordnance for that, so you can choose the kind of rounds you're going to carry, the kind of guns and things, rockets you're going to have, and then you can choose any extra armor you want. I didn't realize a tank needed extra armor, but they do, apparently. They really do.
Yeah.
So once you've done that, then you get onwards to the mission. You'll be given a mission. So, and basically we've got air superiority. You need to go in a tank and do something with your tank. Do tanky stuff. Go and do tanky stuff.
Tank.
So you're like, fine, I'll do the tanky stuff. And then once the slowing progresses, and it is at this point a really long black screen of slowed in. So I even warped it in the end because it was that style. I thought it crashed, but it's a good maybe 5 minutes of loading for that bit, I think, on disc.
Yeah.
Without warping it. Warping it just made it slightly less painful. But anyway, so once it finally starts, you then are inside the tank, and you actually have a series of screens to control this game. So there are there's three main views. There's your driver's station, there's your commander station, and there's your gunner's station. So, and each one of these is selectable with, I think it's 4, 5, and 6 on the keyboard, I think.
Take your word for it.
Now, I went through the quick start guide because I can tell you now, for the first time I started this game, I sat there and got blown up. And that's because I didn't know what to do. I had no clue because it's not obvious. I mean, first off, remember, I'm not on a Commodore 64 keyboard here. So I'm on a Mac. So trying to find the up left arrow key actually meant I had to press end on my keyboard. That switched the tank on, but that didn't turn the engines on. Lesson number 2, when you get blown up, turn your engines on. Mm-hmm. So first off, you have to switch the tank on, I guess, and then you have to turn the engines on. And there's a series of things you have to do. So you have to go to the commander station, press this to turn this on, this to turn that on. These are animated switches and things all on the dashboard UI at the bottom. So the UI in it, the main screen, so for the driver station, commander station, and the gunner's view, the screen is essentially split into 2. The top of the screen is kind of the view out of the tank windows, I guess. Yeah. Best way you can describe it. And then for the commander view and the gunner view, you've actually got like a a view, like a viewfinder, which you can look through, which is you're aiming, sort of where you aim through, and you can aim it. So you've got the turret. And then below that, you've got the controls that apply to that particular view or that particular station. So in the driver's station, you've got the driving controls, the engine controls, the speed. That's the one where you control that. In the commander station, you've got other various different things like your turret, something or other. There's loads of commands. It's a simulator. Then in the gunner's view, obviously you can press different keys to choose the different kind of weapons. You can press return for the gunner to tell you what they're targeting. You can press spacebar and they'll auto target the items as well and shoot at them and stuff like that. So some parts of it are quite okay, but you need to know what you're pressing and you need to know what it does, which means you need to spend some time in the manual for this. The manual is pretty extensive. It's a very thorough explanation of all the details and things you'll need to control a tank if you want to control a tank, and you'll need it because otherwise you won't know. There's certain things you need to switch on. When you go through that quick start guide, it isn't a case of, press this button, press the fire button, move your tank, get going. It's press 1, go to this screen, press 3, C, B, F, turn your flaps off, turn the dingle dangle onto 3. No, press the clicky, turn the radio and shout on. There's loads of little steps. It's not straightforward. It's not start tank, go. It is lots of steps. Now, you need to know what those steps are and you need to know the sequence of it. Without that quick start guide, I would have never had a clue. I wouldn't have known what to press because I don't know how to start a tank, let alone drive one. So as soon as I could get it to the point where I was moving, and when you do that, when you're in the driver's station, when you finally got your engines on and you've got your power on, you've got everything else, you can press forward on the joystick and it will accelerate the tank in the direction that you're facing. And you can go to your map view and choose your 2 waypoints where your tank is going to auto drive to. So you don't have to pilot the tank. You can just tell it the waypoints and it will make its way there once you move the actual tank itself. Mm-hmm. You can then potentially choose the speed. Then you would flick between the different views. And in the distance in the top view, you'll see different objects. So you'll see gunner emplacements, you'll see other tanks and things like that. So you move your target around using your gunner's view and your commander view, and you can press return to highlight them and it'll tell you what they are. And if it's an enemy one, you can then choose to target that. You have to change weapons. I think you press function key F7 to change your weapon. But the controls are really unintuitive.
Yep.
And so you need the manual for this and you need patience because when you do quit out of this game, and I quit out of this game completely by accident, by the way, I pressed 1 key and it just threw me straight back into you have failed this mission. I didn't even know what I did. So I then had to go through all the loading of it again. So there are, when it does end, if it does suddenly end and you fail the mission, it just stops. You failed, and then it loads, and then you're back to that guy at the desk saying, what tank do you want? It's like that. So it's a little bit unforgiving because you don't get any feedback about what went wrong. It's just you failed the mission, end. And it's like, okay. And I found that a few keys just instantly ended it. So and remember, I'm not on a C64 keyboard, so I'm trying to avoid them ones. And I found at least 2 or 3 times where it just quit me out of the game and threw me straight back. She's kind of annoying to do that. But anyway, so the game then. So you'll be given these missions and you run a waypoint. The waypoint and your mission is kind of highlighted. Well, the main target is highlighted with a ring around it and then it's surrounded by little tank graphics. You can press, I want to say M, but I don't think it is M to bring the map view up. I've got a feeling it's probably something like 9 or something really. It wouldn't be something logical. But you bring up your map view and then you can choose your waypoints. But you'll see in there, as you trundle along your view, you'll then see things you can target. And the idea is obviously you've got to complete this mission and get through that. But I found myself pretty much at the mercy of continuous explosions, which I couldn't seem to target anything. I'm pretty sure I never hit a damn thing, even though I got the gunner to specifically target something, which it identified as enemy gun placement. I just kind of shot past it really fast. And even though I was trying to control the speed, I found myself getting confused in the different views. The commander station and the gunner's view look almost identical. So, and they do 2 different things. So you can't shoot from the gunner's view. You can't do that because the commander's view is to sort of have a different view of that. And I found that quite difficult to compete with. So I got lost in the controls, lost trying to control the tank, and I found myself not enjoying it. But now I have to say, I like the idea of this and the breadth of what they've tried to do. And this just really means that time spent with this game is probably time well spent with this game. If you are going to want to play a tank simulation game and you are going to put in the investment of the money you've paid and the investment of time, and you go through the manual, I bet there's a really good game in here because you could probably get quite tactical, the way you navigate the tank around, the way you can control quite a lot of the nuances. And if you get a handle on that, I think you'd probably get a good game. And a lot of the feedback in Lemon and other places was that this game is, a really great classic tank simulator. And I get that totally. I think it probably is. I didn't have the time nor the inclination to play much longer on this than I did, but I can sort of see if you're into it, and this is the way I'm looking at a lot of these simulators now. If you're into it, you'd be into it, and you'd probably like it a lot. And I have to say, as tank simulators go, and I've maybe played one other on the C64, it's not bad as tank simulators go. There are things it does do and things it doesn't do, which I can sort of get behind. I kind of like the views and the way it was controlled. I kind of liked it. I mean, it was confusing, don't get me wrong, but I imagine once you know what you're doing, it's actually pretty good to control in that way. And you've got a good overview of the battlefield, even though it's restricted to a tank. If you're into it, you'll probably like sort of zooming into the battlefield, spinning your gun around and getting the commander view and switching things. You'll enjoy it. It's quite a modern tank sim in that respect as well. It's less arcadey, more simulator, which is quite a nice thing. And you've got all those views to work through. The loading is very painful, but once it loads, it loads. So you don't have to load each individual view in. You flick between the views, principally because they're identical, but you don't have to load them in at least. And there's a nice sort of progression when you're moving. There's a nice kind of moving effect on the ground, so it does look like you're moving, which is okay. Switching the views is simple enough when you know what you're doing. And like I said, and you can tell the gunner to target things. Mine didn't listen to me, but that might be my commanding style. It's less clear on progressing, where you're progressing to, though. It's not easy to know where you are on the map at any given moment. So you need to be checking in your map, but everything kind of looks the same when you're trundling along through the tank's little windows. So you've no idea whether you're getting much closer to where you're meant to be. You have to just hope that the waypoints are working because you've got no real indication. There's not like a light on the dashboard that goes, you are near your target or anything like that. It doesn't give you that away. So I found that a little bit disappointing that it didn't give you much information about your progress into the mission, which you probably needed, really. And the notion of where you're going to, it's a bit less clear, I guess. There's a bit of a disconnect between you as the commander and how the missions play out, because you're given free reign to go on the map whichever way you want. But in reality, that means that you may just be driving around encountering things and not necessarily getting any nearer your goal. The key issue for me really with this, even though the experience is probably okay if you're into it, and the game is pretty challenging, I suppose, is that it's that key combinations of things. Press 4, press 1, press B, press D, press C to do this. You need to know what all those things do, and it's not an easy in for anybody. You're going to have to spend the time with this. But like I've said with many other sims, if you do that, you're going to probably like this. There's probably some good things in here, I think, for those that like it. Maybe it lacks some of the nuances of games like Desert Fox, but this is more simulation and less kind of beachhead, really. And so it's a bit more akin to that kind of experience. They've gone, full-blown simulator on it. I think it's a good and interesting simulator for people that like it, and it does appeal to a niche. And at least it's not reliant on crappy vectors, which is my final thought on this, is that it could have been a crap vector tank game. Could have been really bad, and it would have been. Yeah. But it isn't that. It is kind of mini icons and little mini window views and things like that. But it does feel like you're inside a tank. And because it doesn't have slow, crummy vectors, it does feel like it moves around at a pace. And it feels like you're in the middle of a battlefield when all the bomb sounds are going off and you're shooting at things and there's little explosions and things like that. It does feel like you're in the middle of the thick of things. So without all that vector slowdown and all that FPS nonsense, that means that the game ultimately achieves what it sets out to do, which we've always said these simulators have the problem with, the flight simulators, is that you can't flight simulator in a game that's at 2 FPS. Well, in this, you can drive a tank because it runs at a reasonable pace. So you can do the things it set out to do. The fact that I might not like those things, or that might not be my cup of tea, is neither here nor there. This is a good simulator for someone that likes simulators, and it's in a tank, which is nice. But for me, I'm just not into them. But I quite enjoyed what I did, although it wasn't a lot, as far as I'm aware. And I did learn that you need to turn a tank on, which I thought tanks were just on. Didn't realize you had an on button, but there you go. It just seemed like it would be like a starter key or something. But what did you think to Steel Thunder?
Probably the same as you. 44 pages of manual. And I'm sure this is tanky heaven, for those who want to drive an 8-bit rendition of a tank. But I think, like you, it's not for me. It's not. No. I can't get enthused about these kind of games. I just can't. I found the jovial nature of the commander giving me my missions to be weirdly at odds with the type of game as well. He's dead happy. He's like, hey, go blow stuff up. Like, you're weird. Stop smiling at me with your weird smile. I also managed to crash it because I chose to go on R&R instead of going on mission, which means I guess they weren't happy with me. They were so unhappy with my choice that they crashed the game. Went, you're not for the tank. You're not for the tank service.
Yes, you can't go on holiday now.
Well, you should give me the option.
Weird.
It's a weird option.
Who would choose that option?
I did. See what happened. I went to see what happened. Before I get into the game, it's like, you give me a weird option, I'll choose the weird option. And I did.
That's fair. Don't put it in if you don't expect someone to click on it, right?
Exactly. Once you're in the tank, I didn't have any problems getting it going. I pressed down, pressed thing to get the game to push forward. I was going. I was like, oh, that's quite simple. I don't know.
Okay.
Maybe there was.
How did you start the tank? You have to start the tank.
Yeah, I pressed the back arrow key, which was end, like you said, because I know that's the equivalent on the Commodore keyboard.
It took me ages to find that.
Then I looked at the keyboard and it said, "Oh, this to turn the brakes." So I pressed that a few times, and you
have to press one to. You have to press one to start the engine.
Yeah, maybe that as well. Then all the lights came on, and I just pushed forward on my joystick, and I was moving.
But you didn't turn your hydraulics on for your turret. You see,
I was moving.
You can't turn your turret then.
Well, I don't know. I was driving around at some point. I think I pressed other buttons at some point to aim, but I got it going quite simply. But
you were literally aiming your tank at the things. You weren't turning the turret. You were just facing forward. He's got an unusual style, that tank driver.
Absolutely.
You don't turn the turret. He faces forward always.
You know where I'm going. Absolutely. But the visual representation's all right. The dashboard is cool. It's nice. It's industrial-esque, and it looks fine. The actual view outside is quite nice with the green and the sort of mottled sort of thing, sort of speeding up as it's coming down, as it's sort of dropping down. It's quite, it's all right. I was just trundling about. I was trundling, going for a bit of a trundle in my tank. But I can't get excited, nor I get any real enjoyment from this. I just didn't. I'm like, okay.
No.
I'm sure there are people who swear by this kind of thing. It just feels like another one of these. But like you said, at least it's not shitty vectors that, just moving at two wires per frame per second, whatever. But I'd just rather play something else at this point than another military simulator. Desert Fox is a good call. That's my kind of tank game. Or further out, Encounter. Those kind of tanky blast. I want a blasty. I want a tank game that's not simulator. I want arcade sim. So something that feels like I'm in a tank, like Desert Fox does, but don't expect me to know the ins and outs of an Abrams 101A1 or whatever it is, where to push the start key and turn it on and stuff. It's not for me. And I get, like you said, it's probably more me than the game, but there we are. I think it deserved more than 70% though, maybe, because I think it's actually.
They hate these things, don't they?
But
you know what they're going to do.
It's weird. Yeah, maybe it did, because I think as a tank sim, I think it's actually, it is okay, but maybe 70, or maybe it's 70 is about right. I don't know. There we go. Steel Thunder. It does sound like what's his look in Zoolander?
Oh, blue. That's Blue Steel, isn't it?
Blue Steel. It does sound. It just made me think of that. Steel Thunder. Anyway, there we go. There's Steel Thunder. Still got one game left for March, so let's trundle along to that. And hopefully our tank can turn its turret to look at it. Because that game is the fourth game from the fourth dimension, and this is Mission Impossibubble. And this is coded by Matt Sneap. We've seen a lot of his games before. He did Knuckle Busters, which went on a great start. He's a demo coder, wasn't he?
I believe he was, yeah.
Wasn't he? Yeah. He did Cataball, Hopping Mad. He did that as well. Mean Streak, Shadow Skimmer. He also did visuals on this as well. And the music and sound here is by Neil Baldwin. He did Tangent, Shadow Skimmer, and Garfield's Big Fat Hairy Deal. I don't particularly remember any of them, so I don't know. So as in the previous three games, presentation here is very good. They've got their act together with these four games. Got a nice title screen, cycling coloured logo at the top, and some nice credits and high scores underneath. Custom font, all good. Music's quite nice too, suitably bouncy feels like a bouncy feel. Something to do with bubbles. The UI's in the title screen for the game at the bottom, not something I like, but at least it looks quite nice. It's all right. Pressing fire starts the game. And we get there's not much in the way of story to this, but we get a little musical sting and a message wishing us good luck, and then we're in. According to the instructions, the aim of the game is to locate, rescue, and return a little lost bubble from somewhere inside of each of 6 mazes. That's it. To do this, you must first find the 8 pieces of a scroll that have been hidden within the maze. So there's a scroll that's been ripped up and 8 pieces have been hidden within the maze. And you have to collect these in the set order for some reason. But that's what you got to do. Once you've collected them, you can head for the little missing bubble, and then they will follow you back to the start of the maze. Get them back to the start of the maze, you'll get congratulations, and you're on to the next one. Go to all 6. Well done. The game itself is seen from an isometric view, okay? But don't let that put you off, because this is full colour and with some nice smooth scrolling as well. And everything moves at a decent pace and no slowdown that I'd noticed, no matter what's on screen. Finally, this actually plays an isometric game, but to the C64 strengths. We saw it in that other one, that Tony Crowther one, Zigzag. Was it Zigzag? That did a similar sort of sort of thing. So the C64 can do isometric. We've seen it do it. There was some other ones as well, like Red red lead, and sort of spin dizzy and things like that. It can do it, and this is in that mold. So you play a small ball, and you must move along narrow paths that loop around, and they're above. It's just above sort of black void. There's just these sort of floating platforms that are sort of one track thick. So you've got to, they're a maze. So you've got to go forward and back and left. Controls are up for all right. So up is top right, down is bottom left because it's isometric. Left is for top left, and right is for bottom right. They're okay. They're, I think, the right way for isometric. They're the way I sort of would want to move. I think they work for me anyway. Fire shoots a small bubble from you, which travels away from you in the direction you are facing. And if it hits something, will either do damage or kill it. The mazes themselves are split into various sections. You travel between these through the use of teleporters, like these little sparkly things in the maze. Thing is, these teleporters, they're hard coded to take you to one place, which means to navigate the maze, you need to learn which teleporter will transport you where, as you need to collect the scroll fragments in order. So you got to go back and forth between the sections to collect them. So in the first maze sort of thing, there's a scroll section there. You collect that, you find the transport, you go to the next one, but the scroll piece in that is not the next one, I think. You have to go on to the next one. You're kind of coming back and sort of forward and on yourself to try and figure out which is which. Makes it, you've got to kind of work out the route through these sort of little sections. So this is all hindered by enemies that roam around the maze. So in the first level, these are storm clouds and other balls that look like you. Now, you can shoot these with your bubbles, though. The storm clouds, the balls are hit with one and they'll die, but the storm clouds take 2 hits to take out. Collision with any of these will cost you 1 of your 5 lives. When you do die, you just respawn where you were. So that's quite. You don't go back to the beginning or anything. It just spawns you where you died. That's good. The game itself takes up most of the screen, and as I said, the UI is at the bottom. So the UI at the bottom shows the number of scroll pieces you've collected in the bottom left. It shows your score, your remaining lives, which is indicated by a row of balls, not look like you. It's got the timer for the level, which is indicated by a shrinking bar across the bottom of the UI. And there's a compass, and this points in the general direction of the next scroll piece to collect. So, it'll just highlight pointing up sort of top right, left. And so you'll know, I need to go that way. The next piece is in this direction. So that's kind of handy as well. So you're not just wandering aimlessly around trying to look for the next piece. Also dotted around the maze are mushrooms. And these are kind of handy because in collecting these increases your firepower. So at first you can only fire 1 bubble at a time until it's destroyed. So if it either goes off the maze or it hits something. Collecting mushrooms, if you collect mushrooms, it allows you to fire. So collect 1 mushroom. You just bounce into it, basically, and you can then fire 2 bubbles and then 3 bubbles in front of you. So those rain clouds now can be quite easily taken out because you can fire 2 and it'll both hit them. But collect more than that, then you can fire 1, 2, or 3 bubbles behind you as well. And that's really handy because things chase you. Because, this is something you want to do. So head for the mushrooms when you see them. And you get them, and it makes progress in the game a lot easier. The visuals themselves are nice. It's got a chunky, but medium res, but the pleasing style. I think it looks quite cool. It looks quite nice. It's got a nice, scrolling style to it, and it all looks quite jolly. And the backgrounds and the levels themselves are well drawn. The style changes from world to world. First level's like floating grassy platforms on sort of little sort of muddy with mud underneath them. World 2 is heavily influenced by Bounder. It's got grey tiles and tennis balls chasing you. Level 3 is a spooky world. It's got sort of blue brick platforms and skulls chasing you. Level 4 is similar, not quite as spooky. Still got skulls though. Level 5 takes us to a series of like sandy type tiles. It's got turtles milling about. And the final level takes place on snowy platforms with the balls from Bounder back to sort of annoy you and get in your way. There's always the storm clouds are in every level though. They're always there. This is a tricky game because it's got one main issue. And the main issue I found with this was the spawning of the enemies, right? It's mostly right at the beginning of the game and your inability to sometimes avoid them because enemies can spawn right in front of you or behind you because the nature of the mazes and the way you control and the way you kind of control your ball it can lead to annoyances because they can follow you into dead ends. So early in the game, if you don't have the ability to fire backwards, this will invariably lead to your death because you bounce from because everything's sort of grid based. So it'll be like three grid spaces to 3, and that's how it works. So when you move forward kind of you animate over to 1 grid space. You can't turn round until you've hit the next grid space. Kind of like we saw in that bouncing game last week. You sort of bounce to the next one. So until you sort of land on the next one, you can't turn about. You can't turn round. You can't go in the opposite direction. So if you've got something chasing you, you can't, like I said, this will invariably lead to your death. You can't turn round till you've reached the center of the next tile. And if you can, chances are you won't be able to turn around and shoot quick enough to kill the thing behind you, all because it basically spawned where you were and then just followed around. And I don't think they're following you out of AI. It's just, were they going this direction? But because it might be a dead end, you're kind of screwed. And I lost loads of lives to this, even when I was trying to be careful. And that's especially with the rain clouds, because the rain clouds, you can get like 4 of them on screen, and they take 2 hits to kill. So you don't, not only you have to turn around to face them, but you've got to shoot twice quickly, and you just can't, because, just a simple glance will just kill one of your butt, and you're like, oh, for God's sake. So that's the main issue. That's where I was losing most of my lives. I think that could have been sorted by them not spawning on top of you. I don't know. And I think also as well, just one other little thing is that you're when you're sort of at the top of the screen, you're a bit too close to the edge of the screen, waiting for the scrolling to start. So you've not got much. You don't see much in front of you. So if the path you're on is like at the top, then you're right at the top of the screen before it starts to scroll. So anything coming towards you, you're really not going to see. Little thing, but it can be annoying. However, that's really the only issues I had with this. I quite enjoyed this. I think this is a solid game in this compilation. And again, for £3, considering this a budget game, it's great. It's really good budget fodder. A presentation, the later levels are fairly large. So the first level's not small, but the later levels get really quite large and quite intricate as you're trying to figure out what transporter to go where and trying to figure out where you are, because you don't know where in the map you might have teleported to. So you're kind of trying to make this sort of mental map of the layout while also trying to avoid everything and shoot stuff and find the right scroll and everything. It's quite tricky, but there's a lot of game to go at here. It's going to only 6 levels, but there's it's a challenge to get through them all. And it keeps its challenge sort of thing in trying to figure out your way through it. It's not it doesn't. You don't get loads more enemies on screen. You don't get loads of that sort of thing. It's just trying to navigate and work your way through these mazes while also it's just the right level of annoyance. And I kind of found it sort of pretty well done. The visuals throughout, like, I thought they were really good. They're well done. They're chunky. Like I said, they're medium res, but they're well drawn. They move smoothly. They animate well. They've got kind of a nice character to them. Your sort of main ball character has a kind of sort of like a sort of sneer. It's not a sneer, but it's kind of it's got a face on him, and it all works quite well. The balls, like the bounder balls, are well animated. The little grey clouds moving about. It all moves nicely, and the levels are well drawn. The sound effects are good as well. The visuals, like I said, the sound effects are good. They're not intrusive or annoying. They work in response to the game. Nothing outstays its welcome, and everything's good. It's even got a good twee title screen too, like I said as well, which I quite liked. There's little grievances, as I said. The spawning of the enemies is the main one, but I thought this was well produced, technically proficient, easy to get your head around. The simple concept: go find the scroll pieces in order, then rescue little buddy and bring them back. And it's challenging. I thought it was a good, decent game. There's even an ending screen, should you complete it, with all the bubbles you have rescued bouncing under a nicely drawn toadstool as well. Or I think it plays Celebration. There's a version of Celebration playing. Yeah. I mean, what more could you want? I mean, it's a good as a roundup to this compilation of games. This is another solid budget title that outshines some of its more expensive brethren. I thought this was a really decent game that just, simple in concept, but challenging and pretty addictive. Really good stuff. What did you think?
I think you liked it more than I did. I thought it was okay. Neat enough puzzler, I suppose. The graphics were okay, but they're nothing special. I think they could have done a bit better with some of the shading on some of the main sprites in the game. They just looked a bit flat in a sort of isometric space, and some of the graphics were a bit cheaply shaded and drawn, a bit bitty rather than sort of looking better. But it wasn't bad for that, and it did run at decent speed for an isometric game. And we've seen many of those in the past, and none of them have been that great. This gave me a Maze Mania vibe, even though it's more isometric than that, but it just gave me that kind of Pac-Mania vibe as well.
Yeah, there's a little bit of that to it, yeah. It's a maze game, isn't it? So, yeah.
Yeah, and Maze Mania as well, in the way that you're kind of running around mazes. But I suppose, yeah, like you say, it's a maze game. But that was also a Hewson game. It played well enough. I mean, there's no glitches or bugs or anything else in there, and I quite liked some of it. It is frustrating when you get trapped by clouds and you can't quite shoot them quick enough and stuff, but that's the nature of these games, isn't it? They're not going to make it walk in the park. I thought the music was good. Demon, the music, I thought it was good.
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
And the production is good, and above all of that, of course, this is a budget game, so it's good game for cheap. That's 4 good games in that compilation, isn't it?
Yeah,
which isn't bad. I mean, even if one of these games wasn't that good, it would be a value compilation, but they've all been pretty good. So for budget money, this is a good game. I didn't get along with it that well because I just kind of got a bit fed up of these. I get fed up easily of these kind of games like this, But that said, it isn't a bad one of these. I missed the kind of jump. I wanted it to be able to jump, I think.
Yeah.
But that said, that's part of the puzzle of it. And it does look and play very well. But for budget money, I mean, goodness me. 4 great games, really, in that Fourth Dimension pack. I thought it would be better than it was. I think my expectations have been set quite high from the other 3. It isn't bad. Is it one of the better ones out of the 4? I don't know. They're all very different, aren't they, in their own little way? But they're all very good. It just, I don't know, it controlled better than I thought it would. I just didn't enjoy it for that long. But that's probably more just me than the game. But it is easy to get into. And like you say, once you sort of get into it, well, you can get quite into it, can't you? I thought parts of it were just, as I have with most of these Fourth Dimension games, I'm conscious that you're paying for what you get. And so you're not going to get mega shaded super graphics. You get £3.50's worth of graphics, which ain't bad considering. And it's certainly better than some of the other crap we've seen, like that Wild Streets and stuff like that. So no, I enjoyed this. This is the kind of thing where, how did Dynamite Dux get things so wrong? And how did they get things so right for this budget money? Crazy, really. That I didn't enjoy it doesn't say that the game's bad. That's just I don't necessarily go for these kind of games that well. But there was a good game in here for budget money, wasn't there? So, and Fourth Dimension, proving again. Sounds like it's a good dimension to be in. So.
Indeed. I mean, I think the Insects in Space and Cyberdyne Warrior are probably the ones, and then we sort of vary on the other one, because you liked the one last week, the platformer, more than I did, and I like this one.
I think they're just different challenges, aren't they, though? But what they are is very different, and I like that. This could have just been 4 shoot-em-ups, couldn't it? But they're not. There's
a variety of package here, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. There's an adventure game, there's a platformer, there's a sort of isometric maze game, and there's a defender-style game. I mean,
yeah, exactly.
That's a great arcade package.
Yeah, it is for the money. That's really good, and you might not like every bit of every game, but you'll like something in all of them, and they're all pretty good. They all work. So
and the presentation on all of them is really good.
Yeah, it is. They've got polish, and that's all. All we were really asking for is that little bit of polish to finish them off. Don't make a £10 game and make it look like Wild Streets. Don't do it. Just don't.
Just don't do it. No. There you go. That's it. That's March done. So this week, what have we looked at? Well, we liked Cyberdyne Warrior.
Yeah, good stuff.
Yeah, good stuff. Blue Angels. We flew through some squares.
Yeah, I didn't want to be a formation flying person in a diamond. So and it made it silly.
No. Then we looked at Drab Duck. Which is just so boring. Then we looked at the vapid or vacuous Tintin.
Lack of adventures of.
yeah, absolutely. Hergé's lack of adventures of Tintin, who's not on the moon. Then we looked at Not the Champ, because it's not. Then we looked at Steel Thunder.
If you like it, you like it.
It's got a look. And finally, we looked at the first one from the Fourth Dimension, Mission Impossibubble, which was, again, good fun. But,
good fun.
Your mileage will vary with your enjoyment of maze games, really, because it's one of them.
Yeah. But so good, though.
It is what it is, yeah. There we go. That's it. That's it for this month. That's not been a bad month, actually.
Thank God for Houston.
Better than February. I mean, Super Wonder Boy, I like Super Wonder Boy more than you. Neutralizer was pretty good. Mm-hmm. The Fourth Dimension games were all okay.
They're all good, yeah.
Yeah. And like we said, Steel Thunder and Blue Angels weren't terrible. So I think on the whole, it's a step up from February.
Yes. Well, that wouldn't be hard. But yes,
February was painful. But, who knows? But it's not been a bad month. There's no crapverts, I'm afraid. I can't find any crapverts. So we've just got the charts to go through. So let's do the charts. This is, again, we're now obviously getting the chart from CMVG, as we mentioned, because Commodore uses now Commodore or user Amiga, I think it is now, whatever it is. Yeah. So, countdown from 10. Down to number 10 from 5 is Ghosts and Goblins. Mm-hmm. Up to number 9 from 18 is 100% Dynamite.
Notion Collection.
Yeah, probably. Down to number 8 from 7 is The Untouchables. In at number 7 is Double Dragon 2.
Goodness me.
Staying where it was at number 6 is RoboCop.
Yeah.
In at number 5 is Ghostbusters 2.
Oh,
down to 4 from 2 is Paperboy.
Yep.
In at number 3 is Turbo Outrun.
Okay.
Down to number 2 from 1 is Batman. Straight in at number 1 is Chase HQ.
Absolutely unbelievable. People being duped out of their money. Terrible.
Christ, there's going to be a lot of angry people. There's going to be a lot of... It wouldn't load. It wouldn't load.
No. That's why they have to beware the Ides of March. Beware the games of March. Well, this is February, I suppose, wasn't it? So not March. But...
Yeah. No, this is March. Well, I suppose we're buying it. Yeah, this would be the day then, wouldn't it? The rest of the chart at number 11 is Ghouls and Ghosts, right next, just underneath Ghosts and Goblins. 12 is Power Drift. 13 is Cobra. 14 is Cabal. 15 is Crazy Cars. We've never looked at that, so I don't know. MiG-29 is at number 16.
Okay.
That's Codemasters.
Yeah.
I'm surprised it doesn't say MiG-29 Simulator.
It probably does.
Probably. 17 is Stunt Car Racer.
Okay.
In at number 18 is Renegade.
Okay.
Down to 19 is Father Christmas. And in at number 20 is the Ocean Mega Mix.
Okay. The compilations are strong with Ocean.
Yeah, they really are. So next week, we start April. We are looking at the games we have. I think there's only 10 next time. So we've got After the War, which we saw the crap bit where he was taking a dump in the street. I think it's that one.
We did. Oh, gosh.
Then we've got Crackdown.
Okay, interesting.
Emotion.
Right.
Ferrari Formula One.
Okay.
What we got? What else we got? Marauder, that's a thingy. Mountain bike racer. You wait all your life for a mountain bike simulator, then you get two at once. P47.
Okay.
Pipe Mania.
Right. Okay.
Weird Dreams.
Okay, I seem to remember that on the Amiga.
Yeah, I don't think it's very good. And World Soccer.
Okay.
That's it. That's it for April.
Okay.
So that's it.
See what they come up with.
Yeah. It's not been that bad, March. It's not been that bad. The games have been okay. I've not felt too angry apart from that Wild Streets.
Yeah, I suppose they've been more. They've been better than February's, but that's not saying much. I mean, it would be hard not to be.
Yeah, that's true. So, that's very, very true.
But it's the right direction, that's for sure.
Yeah. So, you got anything you want to add, Graham? Or are we done?
No, I'm going. Like I said, March has just had a few gems in there. It's seen the end of Sensible on the C64, which is kind of a sad farewell, really, because they've done some great stuff.
That was the last one, wasn't it?
And the last tune from Martin Galway as well. So I'll see what else is out there.
Yeah, let's see. As ever, if you want to sign up for our Patreon, you can do that. That's patreon.com/Zapped to the Past. You can go on and head over there and get the episodes early without adverts, get on our Discord, things like that. If you want to drop us a coffee, that's ko-fi.com/Zapped to the Past. Go to our shop and buy some stuff at zappedtothepast.shop. You can buy a mug and stuff and T-shirts and cap and hats and all kinds of things. So, if you want to go and do that, that's all cool. Or just support us on Twitter, Facebook, anything like that. We always like to hear from people. If you didn't agree with one of our reviews or anything, let us know. It's fine. It's all right. We don't mind.
Yeah.
So I think on that note, we shall call March to a close. And as ever, I have been Adrian Mills.
And I have been Graham Raddings.
And you have been listening to Zapped to the Past. And we will see you again next week. Goodbye.
Thank you for listening to the Zapped to the Past podcast. We hope you enjoyed our deep dive into the world of Commodore 64 games, as well as the music, films and TV from around the 1980s, driven, of course, by the issue of Zap 64 magazine published at that time. We will return with a whole new batch of games and stuff to talk about next week. Until then, if you want to listen to or download previous episodes of Zapped to the Past, and why wouldn't you, they can all be found on our website at zappedtothepast.com, as well as being available on Podbean, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Deezer, Audible, Player FM, and, well, pretty much anywhere where we can upload them. By the way, we do always love to hear from our amazing listeners, so if you'd like to contact us about anything in the podcast or beyond, you can do so by emailing us at zappedtothepast@gmail.com. We're also active on Twitter under @ZapTother, as well as Facebook, Instagram, and most social media platforms. Just search for Zapped to the Past and you'll find us. Oh, and if you like the podcast and what we're doing, please do like, share, review, rate us. It really helps. Something, apparently. The Zapped to the Past podcast is written and produced by Adrian Mills and Graham Raddings, and recorded at Flaky Bits 2.0 Studio. All opinions expressed are those of the writers, and while we indeed love Zap 64 magazine, the Zapped to the Past podcast is not affiliated with it in any way. Stay safe, see you next time, and remember, we play these games so you don't have to.